Hello buddy, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be going over the 7.12 patch notes. So we're going to start off by talking about the patch notes themselves. I'm going to go through this relatively quickly because I want to spend a ton of time on the support items and how the meta is going to change. I think this might be the biggest patch, potentially of all time for supports. It's really, really close in terms of diversification and just lots of new complex interactions that it makes it really, really exciting to try different things out and really difficult to predict metas. So I'm going to do my best to give you the best information that I can. I have watched some other kind of patch notes videos and previews for 7.12, and a lot of people really aren't paying enough attention as they should, especially to the support role. So I really dug deep. I spent a ton of time. I mean, I probably literally spent like 4 hours researching for this video and writing up this Google Doc. So I tried to cover every single nook and cranny I could possibly find to give you any kind of new cool stuff that I think might arise. So we'll start with the patch notes. I'm going to go down into the itemization. Oh, I don't need that link anymore. Okay, that used to be to the PvE. We'll go to the itemization. We'll spend a long time on that, and then we'll come down. We'll go to the meta predictions overall for supports and other things, and then we'll finally get down into the tier list itself, and I'll talk about some of these changes. And I updated all the items as well for my mini guides. If you've never watched one of my tier lists before, if you look at this, you click on the little link below, like the top 20 champions or so, then I give you a matchup guide, so who the champion's good with, who they're good against, who they're bad with, who they're bad against, recommended items, runes, masteries. And if I have a completed champion guide for it, then you can click on it and it'll be here. If I don't have a guide, then I just kind of use this as a placeholder until I eventually get a guide for all of the support champions. It just takes a very long time to do those guides too. So like one example that I have a guide for, my newest guide actually is Sona. So you would see a link. Oh, actually I haven't linked that. So I have to do that after this video. By the time the video is published, you'll see it. We've got one for Janna, and you can see it links to the Janna guide. So, and this is going to be a long video. I'm going to try to keep it to like maybe an hour and a half. That's optimistic. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and I want to make sure that I cover everything thoroughly. But always remember that you don't have to watch the whole thing. And, you know, I design it so that it's like a buffet, right? So you can go into the timestamps in the description, find the parts that are most interesting to you. I link you the Google Docs. You can just kind of skim down. You can say, okay, whatever. And then whenever something catches your eye, like, oh, I want to know more about the items, you can just skip straight to the item section of the video. So I try to make it very, very easy to navigate, very easy to skim if you don't have time to watch the whole video, which I know most people probably don't. But there are some people that do, and different people will be interested in different parts of the video. So that's why I make like really in-depth, longer form types of videos. Like, you know, I could do 5 or 6 different, you know, 15-minute videos about all of this stuff, but that just seems like that to be a ton of crap to turn through and a bunch of different documents, and all of it's related, so why not just put it in one video, right? So that's how I handle it. I know there are always people that are like, make it shorter, make it shorter. Well, that's just not how I roll. That's not how I do it. So I give people ways to navigate, but I just don't do super short videos because I don't want to be like everyone else. I want to give you the actual depth, the actual answers that you're looking for. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into these patch notes really quick without much further ado. Okay. So once again, I'm going to go through a lot of this kind of quickly. I don't think there are many meta-changing things outside of the support role. There might be a couple, but most of it's going to revolve around the support role. The supports were front and center on this patch, and that's awesome. For a lot of people on this channel are really interested in the support role, so that's good news. Okay, so Camille gets better trading in lane. She gets more adaptive defenses. That's significantly more early on. I mean, that's 4 seconds faster. So that means you can trade, because really, I haven't played Camille, but I assume you don't want to trade unless this is up. So this means that you can trade roughly 25% more. So that's really good. Precision Protocol, the delayed second hit is double damage, so that's pretty nice. But I think overall, she'll still probably be out of the meta. Like, her problem is a problem of itemization. Right now, Death's Dance users are really the strongest. Like Death's Dance, Hydra users are a lot stronger than Trinity users. So I think that Irelia and Camille are really kind of getting squeezed out of the meta right now. Because Death's Dance and just the lifestealers are just so much more powerful than she is. And she lost a lot of her innate lifesteal. I mean, that was the big nerf to her a few patches ago, where she can't lifesteal off of minions anymore. And they lowered the lifestealing against champions. So she doesn't have the sustain to get away with running Trinity Force, which is what she really wants. So she would have to stop and get sustain items now, like a Death Dance, like a Hydra, and she just doesn't use those items as well as Fiora and Riven do. So I think she'll be okay. You know, if Riven and Fiora are banned and you still need like a fighter top lane, then she might be a good option. I'm not sure if she's better than Yasuo, but it's a crowded place up top with fighters. There are a lot of good fighters right now, and I just don't think she's top tier, but maybe. She does have some nice utility with being able to lock down highly mobile champions, so, you know, she might be a niche pick into something like a Kassadin or a LeBlanc that you can engage on and stop them from jumping around. That could actually be pretty cool. So, you got to catch them first, but I think that if she does get used, it'll probably be as an anti-assassin tool like that. So, I don't know. I still think she could be good. I could be wrong about that. This could be a bigger deal than I think it is, but I still think the Death Dance users, the Fiora, the Rivens, are still probably going to be better for solo queue. But she's definitely viable. I just don't think she's at the top of the food chain right now, like she used to be. Okay, Corki, a little bit weird. He does mostly magic damage now, which is an interesting concept, have an AD carry that does mostly magic damage. I mean, I guess that's a good option, like, maybe if your entire team runs AD, you know, like if you have a Yi in the jungle, a Zed middle, and a Riven top or something, maybe this could be a good option. So that's cool from a tactical perspective. Like, I like the concept. I just think his numbers are a little low. Now, he can buffer during Valkyrie's time. Let me see. Let me just look at him really quickly. I kind of dismissed him, but to be fair, I sort of overlooked it. Let me just skim this. And we'll talk our way through why I think that he's... Okay, 550 range is pretty good. Decent attack damage. Very low health to start. Low speed. He does have the package, which lets you roam. That's kind of nice. It's more for mid lane Corki, but it's okay bottom. Here's the deal. He has very low AP ratios. That's the kicker. Like, if he had better AP ratios, he could run things like, you know, bottom lane potentially like Runeblade or maybe even Void Staff or something like that. Like, if they want to do this, they should just straight up give him like an AP ratio also. I don't know. It's a weird system where it's like physical damage gets converted to magic damage, basically, is what this does. And this also opens the possibility for crit magic damage. So you could crit with the physical damage and it would convert to magic damage. So that could create problems for people because usually spells can't crit, but this is magic that would crit. So you could get some really high numbers if you build a crit build on him. I mean, maybe you could go like, I don't know, like Essence Reaver IE. I don't know, like he needs Trinity also. Now that I don't think the on hit from Trinity converts to magic. I'm pretty sure it does not. The Sheen proc does not convert to magic because it's an on hit. It's not an attack modifier. So that would still be AD. I don't know. It's an interesting concept. It's an interesting concept. I'm not smart enough about Corki and like some of these itemization. Like, you'd have to really go into the tank to figure out a way to abuse this probably. And I already spent enough time going in the tank about the support items this patch. But it's okay. I don't think it's going to be a big difference though. I don't think it's going to be a big difference. He has a lot of problems right now. He can just get outplayed really easily and his damage is lower. But I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he can return middle. But I think they nerfed his they nerfed something about his missiles. Maybe it was the recharge time or the damage. I'm not really sure. They nerfed something about it, and that's what took him out of mid lane. So I don't think that's going to change. I think it's an interesting idea in terms of tactical flexibility that you could have an AD that does mostly magic damage. I just don't think that he's ready for prime time yet. We'll see. Hopefully they keep tinkering with it. I do like the idea. Okay, Ivern, pretty big nerf. However, we talk about support itemization. A lot of that also applies to Ivern, and I think he's still going to be the number 2 jungler, just right behind Zach. Especially if you're a support main, I still highly recommend running Ivern. So this sucks that he's losing 50 damage on his trigger seed, but you got to remember that you're not picking Ivern for damage. His damage is always really low. That's not what makes him really good. What makes him good is it's just impossible to kill people around him because he gets really big shields because he gets a lot of AP. Well, more AP than supports do. and he gets a lot of plus healing, and his trigger seed ends up being on like a 5-second cooldown or something. That's a massive shield. He still has 180 shield on it with an 80 AP ratio. So that's still going to be really good. And the thing is, the new Athenes, which we'll describe here in a little bit, is going to give him a lot of extra AP. So even in the end game, he's really not going to lose that much because he has a 0.8 ratio on it. So, you know, when he gets 100 extra AP from his itemization, then that's going to give him 80 more shield. And so he's losing 50, he'd be gaining 80. So as long as he's getting, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of 70, what's 70 times, maybe 60 times 0.8. There we go. So like 60 to 65, as long as he gets an extra 60 to 65 AP later on, then he still is going to do the same amount of damage. So it's not going to be that big of a deal. I mean, honestly, since he's going to be subbing out Locket, probably because Locket's not going to be as good on him, you just sub in Ardent Censer for Locket. Ardent Censer has 60 AP on it. Boom, problem solved. You're going to have the same amount. So you just switch your item over to Ardent Censer instead of Locket, and you're going to have the same amount of damage. So it's I really don't think it's going to be a big deal. And I think that the changes to Athene's Unholy Grail in particular, and the changes to Knight's Vow so that it has CDR on it so you can actually get it without sacrificing CDR is going to be pretty massive. So I still think he's going to be a phenomenal jungler most of the time, especially for support mains. Jax, it doesn't matter, I don't think. I mean, Jax is still, to me, like a C-lister. He's a Trinity user, which I just talked about before. They've got a lot of problems right now versus Death Stance users. I mean, Jax can be really good late game. I just think he gets outclassed by Fiora, Riven, Yasuo, all kinds of other fighters, potentially. Although, ostensibly, he would be good into them. In practice, he just gets bullied out really hard early on by them, I think. So, I don't know. I know some people really love Jax, and I have seen Jax's go off and be really strong, but it seems like he could have some problems. This is good, though. This is good. I just don't think it's going to take him up to top tier status, but he'll be, you know, tier 2 or tier 3 maybe. The Jhin changes I actually like quite a lot. I think that Jhin is becoming good again. I think there have been several changes that have helped Jhin out quite a lot. So first of all, they lowered the price of all the crit stuff. His crit build's pretty good. I mean, it's not as oppressive as the old lethality builds, but it's still really nice. I mean, Infinity Edge and Essence Reaver are still phenomenal items on him. And now people are going Death's Dance on Jhin, and I think that's really nice because he has huge AD and he has a lot of AD abilities. So that you throw a grenade in a team fight with Death's Dance, you're going to be healing for a ton. Or, you know, your W heals, just everything about his kit heals because he has so many things that he casts. And also having that 80 AD is a really big deal. Like, that makes you hurt and hit like a truck. And that AD, like the massive amount of AD, scales very well with crit. So that means bigger crits, bigger base damage, bigger crits. So I think that a build something like Death's Dance into IE, into Essence Reaver, something along those lines would be really good, or maybe Essence Reaver, Death's Dance, IE. I think IE should probably be second. I think that right there will just about let you one-shot squishies. That would be massive crits. Honestly, I see people go rapid fire on him. You're sacrificing so much for rapid fire because he really doesn't need attack speed at all, hardly. Like, you do get the crit out of it, but it doesn't even have any AD on it. So that means that your ult is not going to do anything. Basically, your dancing grenade gets no benefit from that. So I see people building, you know, attack speed items, mostly rapid fire cannon, and I just think that's a mistake. I mean, I'm not a Jhin master, but it has no AD on it. He doesn't benefit from attack speed hardly at all. You know, the extra range is nice, so that you can get that fourth shot on people. So maybe. I mean, rapid fire is the only attack speed item I'd recommend. But the fact that it just straight up doesn't have AD on it, I'm pretty sure, right? Let me got it. I think it's just attack speed, crit, and passive. And move speed. A little bit of move speed. So, like, you get a tiny bit of move speed. You get a wasted stat with attack speed. I mean, his attack speed does convert over into, you know, some other stuff a little bit, but it's not worth it. It's not worth it. You get a little bit of extra on-hit magic damage, which can't crit. This on-hit. That's I mean, that's cute, but when it comes down to it, man, I would honestly just rather have a huge, huge hit. Because that's what he's all about, is like he just comes up with that 4th shot and just pow, you know, like 1500 damage. Like, that's why you want Jhin. Or ultimate. Like, you ultimate and gun people down and kill them to start fights. So, I would, if I was playing Jhin right now, I would go for the big guns, like, huge damage. And just forget the rapid fire cannon and just go Essence Reaver, IE, and something else. And I think Death's Dance is that something else. So, and if you start the components early, then you get some decent lifesteal in lane. So, I think it's pretty good for him. I think, in fact, that's enough to put him into the top 5 AD carry. Because they're giving him an extra ratio here, which is nice. Like this 0.1. It looks like it sucks because it's only giving you 5, or it's taking off 5 base damage. But if you have a Death's Dance, it has 80. With an extra 0.1 on it, that's an extra 8. So once again, all you have to have is 50 extra AD in your kit, and it's worth it. And if you have any more than 50, then it's a buff. So, and remember, every single hit of this is going to heal. Like, it bounces a lot. So in a team fight, it's going to be a pretty big heal. I think it's 5 bounces. It's a big heal with Death's Dance. And then Curtain Call also has higher base damage, so that's pretty good. But yeah, I think I've played with some more Jhins lately, and I gotta tell you, I like Jhin better than Ezreal. I like him better than Lucian. I probably like him better than Xayah, especially after this nerf. He just has more utility. I could see him coming back. I mean, I don't know. We'll talk about the top 5 ADC in a little bit, but I think he's definitely in the conversation. We'll put it that way. I think he's in the conversation with the Death's Dance build and the buffs to crit. Okay, Karma. I thought this nerf was going to be a bigger deal than it is. It's a substantial nerf to how much shield your allies get in a fight. But, she's so good with the new Athenes. Like, Ardent Sensor into Athenes into Redemption is a big, big ticket item. And she could also potentially build Zeke's. We'll talk about that later. But if you have Zeke's plus Ardent, then that can do a lot of buff on your AD carry. But, you know, you can also get a lot of healing if you go for the Redemption instead of the Zeke's. So she has some different itemization paths that she can go. But I think the new Athenes is so powerful on her that extra little shield's not going to matter. I mean, once again, she has a 0.6 on her shield. She's losing 20. So, it's probably even lower than that. So if you get 40 extra AP off of Athenes, it's 24. You get an extra 30. There you go. So if you have an extra 35 AP from somewhere in your kit, which basically you build Athenes, it's going to give you that extra bit. I mean, we'll talk about Athenes here in a second. It's going to give a ton of AP with this build. If you go Ardent Athenes Redemption, it's going to give you a ton of AP. It's going to give you like 70 AP or something like that. So she's definitely going to make up for that. So you know, it looks like a slap on the wrist, but it looks like a substantial nerf, but really it's not going to be anything hardly. This is significant, but in solo queue especially, you're not hitting your whole team with this shield most of the time anyways. You might be hitting a couple of people. So it's fine. But they already noticed this. See, they know that Unholy Grail is going to be really good on her, so that's why they're nerfing her, to try to balance it out. And they say the same thing on Ivern. So they know that Unholy Grail is going to be ridiculously powerful on them. So they're just trying to slap them on the wrist a little bit early to make up for the insane power they're going to have later. So they know. Riot knows. Okay, Kindred still sucks. I was one of the only YouTubers that came out and said that she sucked. LS was saying she was going to be a powerhouse. Phylol said she's going to be a powerhouse. Red Mercy said she's going to be pretty good. No, I was saying awful right from the start. And I talked about that a lot in 7.11. If you want to know, I have like an entire 20-minute section about Kindred, her new kit, and why I think it's underwhelming. But yeah, everybody was wrong about this. She's just bad. And this is not going to change. I mean, she got a couple of minor nerfs, like Wolf Speed. Like, the problem is itemization. Just watch my 7.11. I talk about the problems with her, and this solves none of them. The problem is itemization. She doesn't have any reason to build on-hit. Her on-hit in her kit is worthless now because they took away the on-hit max damage that her passive used to do. And her itemization is garbage because she can't build penetration, so she has a big-time problem with tanks because most of her damage is magic and her autos are physical. You know, some people like LS say that's good to have mixed damage. It's bad because you can't build penetration, so you can't get through tanks. So if you build armor pen and it doesn't help with any of your abilities hardly, then you're losing so much efficiency that it's just not worth it. So She just gets bullied and beat up around the board. She might be the lowest win rate champion right now. I don't know. It's pretty close, but she's trash. Just don't play her. I mean, if you love her, I'm sorry, but you got to agree with me. If you played her this patch, it just doesn't feel good. So hopefully Riot buffs her. I like the concept. I think it's cool. I like the utility of her ultimate. So I think the potential is there. They just need to do a couple of things. I mean, just give her some kind of on-hit in her kit that matters. Or like maybe if she hits more, then it like lowers the cooldown on her abilities, karma-esque type of stuff. Like maybe that interaction would be cool. That would be cool. I mean, they're kindred, right? They work together. So if Lamb attacks, then maybe Wolf, it could lower the cooldown on Wolf or something like that. I think that would be a really cool mechanic that would make sense in terms of their mythology and their backstory. So I think that would be cool. Just something where on-hit matters. Because right now, like, it makes you want to build on-hit, but she doesn't have any sort of thing that really matters that much on-hit. She gets all this extra attack speed, and, you know, it just doesn't pay off. It doesn't pay off with anything, so I think that would be a cool interaction. Like, maybe lower the cooldown by like half a second or something every time she autos for like Wolf's abilities, something like that, and turn those into physical abilities. Anyways, I don't know. Hopefully they keep tinkered with it. If all of her abilities were physical and she could run Death's Dance, I think that would be tremendous. Like if she could run Death's Dance and then Hurricane or something like that, I think that'd be really good. But unfortunately, it's just not the case. Okay, Malzahar. They're nerfing him. I don't get it. Like, I never see this guy in solo queue. Like, I don't know what the deal is. You know, I know he's garbage as support after the minion nerf. I guess, you know, and I said he might be a decent mid laner. I guess they think he's too much. But why? Why are you nerfing this guy? Like, that's what I want to know. When there's champions like Kassadin, LeBlanc. Like, there's way more toxic champions out there than Malzahar. Like, Kassadin has virtually no counterplay to him. He's just a terror, and you're going to nerf Malzahar? You just nerfed him. Like the last patch was basically a nerf, right? And you're gonna nerf him again. Like, I don't get it. He's one of the only people that can combat these assassins. Kassadin will still take him to town, but you know, you might be able to hold him down long enough for the rest of your team to kill him. You know, he's one of the only answers to like LeBlanc and Katarina and all of these other like hyper carry, like super snowbally assassins in the mid lane. And there needs to be an answer. Like, Ryze used to be an answer, and they just nerfed him into the gutter. And now they're nerfing Malzahar into the gutter. So there just is not counterplay to these champions, really. It's just like, you just play the assassin better than their assassin. Which is cool, I guess, but it's very frustrating as a support, you know, when someone last picks Kassadin, and I picked Janna, or something like that, to try to protect my AD carry, and then this Kassadin's just jumping around every 2 seconds and one-shotting people, and it just doesn't matter what I do. It's just super frustrating. But they did give him, I do like this change. This is actually a pretty good buff. They're calling it a bug fix. But basically, if someone QSS's his ult, so uses Quicksilver Sash to cleanse his ult, he still does damage. He still does damage now. So it removes the suppression so people can move, but he still does his full damage. This is very good for him to finish off 80 carries that he catches, or like Master Yi, or just like other junglers that might build a QSS. So I think maybe you can still pick him as a pick against a LeBlanc or something. I don't know. I honestly haven't seen him since this entire patch. I haven't seen him mid lane. So I honestly don't know. But, you know, he, in theory, could still be a good counter to assassins. But I don't know. This is cool. I do like this, because that's one thing when I played Malzahar support, it just sucked when people cleanse your... They just use QSS and boom, you just don't exist as a champion anymore. Because it took away all your damage. They just walk out of your little pool that does the damage. But with this, it's going to stick on them for 1250 range. So it's going to deal its full damage. So I do like that part of it. I mean, maybe that's enough. Maybe that bug fix is enough to overcome some of these number nerfs here. But we'll see. I mean, I just haven't seen him. I just haven't seen him, so I don't know enough about it. People were saying he had a high win rate. I don't know. But I hope he's still viable, and I hope people can pick him as a counter pick to Kassadin and such. Right now, the only counter pick to Kassadin really is ban him in solo queue. You can beat him, but I did beat one the other day on stream. But it's such a monumental task a lot of the time. All right, Rakan. You plus shield and heal values, boost up your passive Fae Feathers. That's pretty good. I don't know. I don't know about Rakan. Like, he's good in the LCS because people are coordinated, and like the thing that makes him good is you can ult W flash, and it's like basically like an insta stun, basically. So it's like the old like Gragas flash E and then ult. Like you could just instantly hit people with it. There's almost no counterplay to it, so that's why they play him. It's a very specific reason why they play him in pro play. That just doesn't come out a lot in solo queue. Like, he requires a lot of team coordination. Like, as I've said in the past, Rakan can be powerful, but his problem is a problem of itemization. Like, he can't really run Knight's Vow. First of all, he wants to be tanky because he wants to be initiating. But the shield does not shield him, and he can't shield himself, and that's a huge deal. So, you know, if Ziggs is throwing a bomb, for example, and this happened to me several times, Ziggs is throwing a bomb at your AD carry who's really low, you know, dash in to shield him, and then you either die or you get chunked out massively because whenever you shield him, it doesn't shield you. So you need to build really tanky because you have no defensive steroids, and you have to run in and get close to tag everybody. You have to get close to shield. Pretty low move speed, so it can be rough. And this has no wave clear too, so a lot of times you get bullied out in lane pretty hard. Like, you can get a heal off sorta, but usually you're just sitting there just chucking like level 1 Qs, and it's awful unless you all in engage. So he has no poke, he has no wave clear, he has no inherent tankiness, and his itemization is pretty bad because he can't build Knight's Vow effectively because he's ranged. He can't really build the Relic Shield line because he's ranged. What is going on? Did I accidentally click something? So those two right there are really rough. However, he can probably use like Zeke's Ardent pretty well because he does want the tank stats from Zeke's Herald. He does have a pretty low cooldown ult. So I do think that Zeke's plus Ardent Sensor could be a pretty potent combination on him. So because of that, you know, he's going to rise in stock, and I put him up higher on the tier list because he's one of the few champions that can use Zeke's Ardents really, really well. So we'll see. Maybe that'll help him. I mean, he could go Zeke, Ardent. I just don't know what else you get after that. Like, if he could run Knight's Vow, if he was just considered melee, it would be so strong. And the thing with, like, Thresh, that'd be so much better. Just give him the 150 range melee. That's it. Then that would allow him to go Relic Shield and Knight's Vow, and then boom, he would be fantastic. But it's the same problem with Thresh, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, is that he can't really go Knight's Vow, which is a big deal on tanks because that's by far the best tank support item right now. So we'll see. We'll see. I think that this small buff helps him for sure, but I'm not sure if it'll take him all the way up to top tier. I think he's still pretty good, though. Still pretty good. I think he'll be good in pro play, and he'll be all right in solo queue. Rek'Sai, I don't think is going to matter. So I thought Rek'Sai was going to be really strong, so I was kind of wrong about this one. And the reason is the stats and numbers didn't really illustrate just how bad her ultimate is. It's so easy to dodge. People can just walk out of it. Now, it says they can't walk out of it, but they can still dash or flash out of it. So that's a lot of her damage, and her combo is being able to stick on people or being able to jump through. This doesn't matter, I don't think. This little unburrow, whatever, it doesn't matter. I still think she's going to be bad. I mean, her ult just sucks. That's just all there is to it. Like, when it said, like, unstoppable and it's coming at you, like, I'm thinking something kind of like a Malphite. Like, she does it and the thing just, like, boom, goes right at you. Like, I was thinking that, you know, she goes underground for a second and then comes at you, and it's gonna hit you. Like, I thought it was virtually guaranteed, and the only reason there was that delay was in case you had, like, a shield or something like that you could do. But no, you can just walk out of it or dash out of it. So it's kind of like a Warwick's ult that has a much higher delay on it than Warwick's ult. Like, Warwick just straight jumps at you. This is like delay and then jump at you. So it just feels really bad. Yeah, I think she's still going to be trash right now. I mean, I want her to be good. I was excited. Like, I thought she'd be good. But without her ultimate, she just doesn't do the damage. She doesn't have the sticking power. Every time I've seen her in game, she's been largely irrelevant and just a lot of times just outright bad. Like, not as bad as Kindred, but pretty bad. And Rumble. Poor Rumble. Rumble is one of my favorite champions of all time. I played like 700 games as Rumble, Season 2, and this really makes me sad. Making it more intuitive. You're trashing him. You're completely throwing him in the gutter, I think. I mean, there's a possibility. I haven't played Rumble consistently in years. But all of this seems really, really bad. Well, not all of it, but a lot of it does. Like, obviously, the benefits to Shield and to Electro Harpoon are good. Although this is a buff to the number, but the duration is much lower. Which sucks a lot. I mean, that's like 25% lower duration. The Electro Harpoon is kind of whatever. I mean, it's not a big deal. Maybe people will start leveling this in lane now since Flame Spitter's so awful. I don't know. Like, this right here is just really... This is definitely a feels bad. 10 seconds on your main wave clear and trading tool in lane. 10 freaking seconds. I mean, yeah, it does a lot of damage at level 1 if they sit in the entire flamethrower. That's the thing. It's 135. They have to sit in it for 3 seconds, though. Okay, the extra 0.1 ratio, whatever. It's fine. But they have to sit in it for the entire 3 seconds for 135 damage. And it does 75% to minions. I mean, part of what brought Rumble back into the meta, when he was out of the meta for years, for a very long time, is that he did full damage to minions. So his whole thing, if you've never played Rumble or against Rumble, his whole thing is he pushes you in a tower really hard early, and he can harass you under tower, and it's just a game of cat and mouse. Like, can he avoid the jungler? Because if the jungler comes up there, he's going to die. He has virtually no escapes. He's terrible with ganks. So if he gets ganked, he's basically dead. So that's his weakness. Like, and that was the cool tension with Rumble, is you were very good early on, one-on-one. You could push very well. You were an AP threat top. There aren't many good AP tops. So it was great for sort of champion or team composition diversity. And you could pressure a lot of people out early and just avoid the jungler and, you know, really put on some lane pressure. So that was great. That was his thing. That's his whole thing. Because what happens in a lot of matchups with Rumble is you get an advantage early, but if you're not up a lot of CS, levels, tower damage, if you're not up, then it gets really bad for him really quickly. Because once they get a Spectre's Cowl or a Hex Drinker, he has a really, really hard time overcoming those items. So, you know, once Ribbon gets her Hex Drinker, or once Swain gets his Spectre's Cowl or whatever, it's done. Like, you're probably going to lose the lane. Unless you already have, like, Sork Boots or Haunting Guys. Like, you have to be ahead of them in items. Otherwise, like, Darius is rough for him. Swain's rough for him. Any tank that gets Spectre's Cowl is going to be rough for him. It's just hard, and any fighter that gets Hex Drinkers. So, I mean, he has virtually no good matchups. You know, once people start getting some items top lane. Like, he's really good at team fighting, but his one-on-one suffers dramatically once people get those magic resist items. So, you know, I think this is a nail in the coffin for Rumble. That's what I think. I mean, 10 seconds is way too long. You can't harass that long. Like, you can't do anything when that's on cooldown. And as soon as you use that, the Ribbon's going to turn around and beat you up. She has 10 seconds to beat you up now. That's an eternity. I was saying it's really bad. I think he's in the gutter. Also, this heat, I can't really tell exactly what this means, but decay rate is 1, and it doesn't decay for after 4 seconds. Basically, this seems like you're going to overheat a lot more. And it's just going to be a lot harder to keep your heat in the danger zone. And if you overheat, that's really bad in a team fight. I don't know. I feel like he already has a lot of problems. Like, there are some pro players that will play him in some matchups, but I think that in general, he's already sort of on the fringe of viability, and this is just going to push him out. So, poor Rumble. RIP. I think that's going to be it for Rumble. Because if you can't pressure early, there's just no point picking him. Okay, Xayah. I think this is going to be a pretty substantial nerf. How are we doing on time here? I need to pick it up. We need to pick up pace. Xayah, now she can no longer, like, insta-root you. So this is the thing that it took me forever to figure out, like, why am I getting rooted? She only attacked me once. But what she does is she'll Q, and then after she Qs, it triggers her passive, and while the Q is flying through midair, she attacks you once with the passive. It puts 3 feathers behind you, and then she can instantly press E and root you. So it's this crazy, like, burst combo, you know, for quite a lot of damage that she could do to you in lane, and it was obnoxious, because it's like 700 range or something with her passive. So they finally fixed that, so that's good. Now at least she presses Q, and you have a little bit to, like, move before she can auto-attack you again. Excuse me. And this is going to be a pretty substantial nerf. She's not going to be able to use her W nearly as much in lane. Oh, I thought it was going to be... I thought that was the stun. Okay. So I thought that was her stun was going to be on a longer cooldown. But it's her W for the extra damage and such. Okay, so she just is not empowered for as long. It's okay. I don't know. I mean, I think this is pretty substantial, especially for laning phase. She's alright. I mean, she could be really good. I think Twitch is better. I don't know. Maybe she deserves to be top 5. She's viable. She's viable. I just don't think she's as good as Draven, Twitch, or Caitlyn, but she's somewhere in the mix. She's in the mix. Zach, this doesn't matter. Who cares? Like, okay, he's losing 10 damage on his W. That's mostly a percentage damage ability. That's probably the last thing that he levels. Maybe not the last thing he levels. I don't know. This just seems insignificant. 10 damage here, 20 damage here. Like, the damage on Zach doesn't matter. What matters about Zach is that his Q is basically a guaranteed, like, big stun. And then he has another stun with a slingshot. Huge, like, ridiculous engage range. Even if he misses his E, he just Qs you. And a minion or something knocks you together, and then you're dead. And then, of course, his ultimate, you know, when you stun people by knocking them together or landing on them with your E or whatever, you just, like, pull them back into your team, and he's just impossible to kill. It's really hard to deal with. It's really hard to ward for his ganks, because he can just, like, engage from halfway across the map. Like, what they need to nerf is the range on his E, or the stun duration, like, on his Q or something. Because the animation, like, it says it's only, like, a half a second stun or something. I don't remember what it is, but, like, the animation where he, like, grabs 2 people and then clocks them together, like, that happens, and then the stun duration starts. So it feels like it's really like a 1 second stun duration or something. It's just brutal. He's still the best jungler. He needs to be banned every game. If he's not banned, you need to pick him. I did see a bad Zach on my team, but that's because he had literally never played Zach before. So one thing I thought I'd just change this. Oh, I'm over here. Oops. Looking at the wrong thing there. Okay, anyways, whatever. You know, it's disappointing that they haven't nerfed the assassins. Like, they really need to nerf Cassidy and LeBlanc. Like, seriously. Katarina at least requires a little bit of skill, and I mean, LeBlanc does require some skill. Cassidy, no. He's just like, slam your face on the keyboard and kill everybody. But I don't know. They need to nerf those champions. That's just all there is to it. But they didn't, so whatever. We'll move on. Okay, so now for the exciting stuff. All right, so this is probably why a lot of people are tuning in. Everyone wants to know about these item changes. I did talk about them a little bit in my 7.11 patch notes, but I want to talk about them a little bit more right here. Well, a lot of bit more right here, because there's a lot of exciting things going on. So, awesome changes. First off, I think this is fantastic balancing by Riot. This is something I've been asking for a long time, is make Redemption and Locket mutually exclusive in some way. Like I said, just straight up don't allow a person to buy 2 of them, right? Just kind of like gold per 5 items. That was my suggestion. That was the easiest suggestion. It's like, if you buy one, you can't buy the other. But they have done a more creative job where it's not a feels bad, like you're getting punished. It's actually a feels good, where, you know, if you specialize in being an enchanter and you get lots of mana regen, then you get bigger redemption hits. And they also, you know, took away some of the health, took away some of the health regen, and added in more mana regen. So overall, they're making it more of a squishy caster item. Fantastic. It's bad on tanks. It's great for enchanters. Good job. On the flip side, they're making Locket to where it scales with plus health. And we'll talk about all this here in a second, which means it's terrible on enchanters, but it's really, really good on tanks. So they effectively have made them mutually exclusive, but in a fun way to where you can scale it with the items that you want to get for that type of champion. So I think that's fantastic. They finally gave Knight's Vow CDR. I've been asking for this for like 6 months. I've been saying that's all they need to do to make Knight's Vow really good is give it CDR. Because one of the big problems with tanks for most of the season is they have no CDR items. There's a couple of big problems. So they don't have CDR items, historically. Or this season, they don't have CDR items because Locket has no CDR on it. Knight's Vow had no CDR on it. And until recently, Eye of the Equinox didn't have CDR on it. They gave Eye of the Equinox CDR like maybe 4 or 5 patches ago. So tanks just didn't have CDR. Like, you had to buy Ionian boots or something, which is bad because you need to buy Ninja Tabi a lot of times as a tank. So you had to buy Redemption. That was another problem, is if you buy Redemption, you're really squishy, but you had to do it because it was such an important team fight item. That's why a lot of all-in tanks like Nautilus have just been garbage this season, because they can't be tanky because they have to get Redemption and Locket. And Locket's not that tanky. At least it wasn't in its prior iteration. So CDR, having to buy Redemption, these were two things that, and just damage being through the roof powerful, because there's just been so many assassins this entire season. Like, we've never had a tank meta. It's always been like heavy damage meta in pro play, or in solo queue, mostly in pro play too. But now, finally, we have some diversity, I think, finally. I mean, this is probably the most diverse and exciting set of items I've ever seen in League of Legends. Because you have 6 really highly valuable... Oh, hi, Sadie. You have 6 highly valuable items for supports to choose from. You have Zeke's Convergence, which we'll talk about. We have Ardent Censer, Athene's Unholy Grail, Knight's Vow, Locket, and Redemption. All of these are prime time items. These are very, very good, powerful items, and it makes you it encourages you to make some very useful and interesting choices. Like, it's no longer just you gotta buy Redemption Locket, or, you know, in last season it was I don't remember what it was. It's like you had to buy Locket and one other before Redemption was an item. You know, one other item that was powerful back then. I don't remember what it was, but it's always been something where it's been, you gotta buy Locket and Frozen Heart, or you gotta buy whatever, right? So there's only been like maybe 2 or 3 items maybe that were good on supports, and that just kind of dictated whether it was a tank meta or an enchanter meta or whatever. So now there's 6 to choose from, and there's some really exciting combinations too, which we'll talk about, for sort of hybrid type of champions. And then there's still 3 like other pretty good items. I mean, Face of the Mountain can still be great on tanks, Mikhail's can still be great on enchanters, and Banner of Command is still pretty bad, but it's like, it's viable. Like, you can buy it on some champions. It's possible. I would have loved for them to buff ZZ Rot Portal to make it really interesting, but this will do. This is still good. There's a ton of options here. And this doesn't include boots, obviously, or forward items. So, so really, you know, there's like 8 items. Okay. So tons of complexity. There are very complex masteries and interactions too. And this is something that people have talked about in the past. So Philo made a video about like Ashe support. That was just trash back in the day. Trash support. But now with the new Zeke's, which we'll talk about, that actually makes the Stoneborn plus Ardent Censer interaction a real thing on a lot of tanks, because that AoE slow that you get off of Zeke's can trigger Stoneborn, and that in turn can trigger Ardent Censer. So let me familiarize you with how this works in case you haven't seen any of these videos, because this hasn't been a major thing in past patches because it was just too cute. Like, there were just really weird, rare interactions with this that people just didn't really utilize. But if you look at Stoneborn Pact, and I think I've got it pulled up here. Here we go. This is how this item works. You get 5% max health as bonus health, whatever. That's pretty weak. But here's the thing. Your crowd control effects brand enemy champions with an earthen rune for 4 seconds. So what this means is if you slow somebody or stun them or whatever, silence does not count. This is very important. We'll talk about that with Fiddlesticks. I researched it. Silence does not count as a crowd control effect for these purposes. I'm like 99% sure. because it doesn't impair movement. It has to be a movement impairing thing that counts as crowd control. Okay, so you cast a slow on an enemy, they get this little rune over them. Okay, it lasts for 4 seconds. Okay. So if other allied champions attack these enemies, not you, other people, if other people attack them, then those other people... Okay, and once again, this is grammar. We'll talk about grammar with Zeke's Herald. This is awful grammar right now because it's hard to tell who's doing the healing. So this isn't exactly passive voice, but it's close. I'm an English professor, if you're wondering. I do teach college-level persuasive writing. But the wording here sort of shrouds the actor, the agent in this sentence. So if you look at other allied champions who attack branded enemies, heal for this amount. Okay, whatever. It's a relatively small heal. But it's the heal that's the big deal, okay? This heal actually counts as coming from you, because this is your rune you put on them. So it's not lifesteal for them. It's a heal that comes from you. So it counts as you healing them. Okay? So this counts as you healing them. So that's really, really important if we look at Ardent Censer now. Heals and shields on allied champions, excluding yourself, enhance their basic attacks for this amount. So the healing from Stoneborn Pact triggers Ardent Censer because it counts as a heal from you. So a heal from you triggers this. So anyone that attacks a person who has one of those Stoneborn runes on them is going to gain this buff for the extra attack speed and the extra on hit. Okay? I believe the on hit counts as a heal from them. Okay? Because they're the one doing the hitting. So that doesn't get enhanced. But Stoneborn does trigger Ardent Censer. So if you put those runes on people and they hit that person, anyone that hits them, anyone on your team hits them. Now it doesn't consume the rune either. So if this person has a rune on them and 5 allies attack them, they all heal and they all get the Ardent Censer buff. Okay? So that's an interaction that's going to be key in this patch, I think. Alright? So Stoneborn Pact triggers Ardent Censer. Alright? Now, Athene's Unholy Grail. If we look at the new Athene's Unholy Grail. Okay. So we'll talk about it more in depth here in a second. What you need to know about this is healing or shielding another ally consumes charges to heal them up to the original effect amount. It doesn't say consumes all charges. It says consumes some charges. So, for example, if we look at Stoneborn Pact, right? So this is going to heal you for, let's say you have 1,000 health. It's going to heal for 25, 30. It's going to heal for 30 health. Okay? So that means that if you have blood charges, that heal, which counts as coming from you, is going to shield or heal potentially for an additional 30 if you have blood charges. So if you deal damage and you have blood charges stored up in Athene's Unholy Grail, you activate a Stoneborn Pact on somebody with those runes, they auto-attack and you have 1,000 health, it's going to heal for 30, and then it's going to heal for an additional 30 as long as you have charges here. So it's going to heal for 60. Now, I believe, because this is instant though, so it's going to heal for an instant 30 here. And then if you look at, get those out of there. Okay, if we look at Stoneborn, this heals over time. Now that's interesting. I'm not sure, so it does 1.5 up front. And then 60% over 2 seconds. So I'm not sure how often this ticks over 60 seconds, but potentially each one of those ticks would trigger more of the Athenes. So basically, over 2 seconds, they're going to heal. I don't know if it's instant or if it's over 2 seconds, but basically they're going to heal for double each one of these, as long as you have these blood things. Now, there's no cooldown on this. So if you have 4 allies attack, let's say that you have, let's say that you have 100 or whatever of these blood charges charged up. So you did damage, you did 400 damage, it gives you 100 blood charges, and let's say that you put an Earthen Rune on somebody, and 3 allies attack that person once, then, and you're just healing for, let's say you have 1,000 health, you're just healing for the 30 like we described before. Each one of those allies is going to heal for an additional 30, so it's going to take up 90 of your blood charges. Okay? And then if they keep attacking, they're going to heal more until they take up all of your blood charges. So, you know, if you, just because you have 100 blood charges and somebody hits once with the Stoneborn Pact, it's not going to heal for more than that Stoneborn Pact heals for, right? So it can't overheal. It says that up to the original amount. But because there's no internal cooldown, if they keep attacking them, they will keep healing and depleting these blood charges, and everyone else who attacks will also deplete it. So it doesn't get these huge like spike heals like we'll talk about with Sona here in a second, but it does heal everybody and eventually use these blood charges and just disperse that healing amongst your team. So it does end up healing everybody for a lot. And that does give you a use if you get Ardent Censer. The plus healing and shielding does apply to the blood charges, and it does apply to the healing that you get off of Stoneborn. So it does increase. So that means this isn't a completely wasted stat on someone like a Tahm Kench, which we'll talk about. But it's not the best stat on Tahm Kench, but it's okay. It helps his own Gray Shield healing. It helps his own regeneration. And it helps the healing off of Stoneborn and the healing off of Athene's, if you choose to go Athene's with him, which I don't know, that's stretching it. But anyways, it's an interaction to be aware of. So those are very complex interactions. The grammar is bad on most of these abilities because it's not clear how some of this works. But it's very powerful because there's no internal cooldown on any of this stuff. It can just keep triggering over and over and over again. So we'll talk about what all this means, but I just wanted to break down kind of the technicalities there. That took a lot of research to sort of figure out, and I'm like 99% sure all of that's accurate from everything that I was able to read. But these are very complex and interesting interactions. So, you know, this means that, and Zeke's Herald, as I said before, generates, do we have a Zeke's, or Zeke's Convergence? Let me look it up. No. Or was it Zeke's Harbinger? I think it was Zeke's Harbinger. And then it should have a link to the new one, I think, right? Okay, Zeke's Herald was the old one. Zeke's Harbinger. Zeke's Convergence. Okay, so you can't look it up on Google for some reason, but you can take the link there and get to it. And we'll talk about this more here in a second. But it's important to note that this slow, ultimate near your ally summons a Frost Storm for 10 seconds. Nearby enemies are slowed. Okay? So it's an AoE slow. Now, it's not a huge radius. It doesn't say what the radius is, but I watched some videos on it. It looks like it's about like a 200 or 300 radius maybe. So it's not massive, but it is an area of effect slow, and it does last for 10 seconds. So especially on melee champions, it's easy to stick this on people. That slow triggers the Stoneborn, and the Stoneborn in turn triggers the Athenes and the Ardent Censer potentially. So that's why this interaction is I think, potentially could become more mainstream, because now all of the tanks can get this extra slow in their kit because of Zeke's Convergence, and this is going to help out a ton if you want to go for the Ardent Censer or potentially even the Athene's build. Now it's not just something really weird that Ashe would get, but this is like a real thing that you could get on other champions as well, because Zeke's makes that a lot more viable. Okay, so that's kind of the new tech. So this interaction has been there between Athene's Unholy Grail, Ardent Censer, and Stoneborn Tact. All this has been there, but they just recently buffed Athene's a lot, and they just brought Zeke's into the game. So that's why I think that this is going to potentially become more mainstream. We'll see. It still is a little bit of a stretch on some champions, but there are other champions where this could be very, very powerful. Okay? So I think that some of the best interactions will be if you go Zeke's Harbinger. We'll talk about all this more here in a second. But if you have a champion that can build Zeke's Harbinger plus Ardent Censer, that's massive, because you're going to get 50% bonus magic damage on attack. And you're going to get the extra percentage attack speed and the extra on-hit damage. And if you put both of those on your AD carry, that's massive. So I think that's going to be a really big deal if you can build that. And the Knight's Vow is really strong too now. So I think that's a really powerful build path. I think your standard Enchanter, like Ardent Censer plus Athene's plus Redemption on like a Nami, a Karma, a Sona, this is going to be really powerful. I think just kind of a classic tank build of like Zeke's Knight's Vow Locket can be really powerful too. And I also think that some champions might want Ardent plus Athene's plus Vow. Even if they can't use Zeke's, and can still be really strong. So champions that I think are stronger with these changes, and we'll talk about this when we get down to the tier list, but I think stronger champions are going to be Blitz, Sona, Nami, Karma, Gragas, Tahm, maybe Nunu, maybe Galio, maybe Rakan. So we'll see. I think weaker champions, Janna. I still think Janna will be strong, but the problem is she doesn't do a lot of damage, so she can't really activate Athene's that easily. She can't really get a lot of blood charges out of it, but she still is just really good because she's Janna, and she has a really nice kit. So we'll see. I think Fiddle, Zyra, and Thresh, and like Bard, maybe, are going to get hurt a little bit, because Thresh in particular is very reliant on the Redemption plus Locket, just getting those abilities, because he doesn't benefit from hardly any of these new things. Like, yeah, he can get Zeke's, but his ultimate's on 140-second cooldown to start with. That's not cool. That's going to take forever. So he can get it, and he probably will, but he can't do Knight's Vow because he's considered ranged. He doesn't really benefit that well from Ardent Censer because he has no AP on any of his abilities. So even if he gets Stoneborn Pact plus Zeke's, he doesn't have any AP ratios hardly, except for like on his ult. So that's not really going to be that beneficial. And yeah, he's not going to be stacking that much health probably, so Locket is not going to be that great. I guess you can get it, but I don't know. He'll be okay, but the itemization is just not as good as it on him as is on other champions. And like Fiddlesticks and Zyra don't get any new toys hardly. Like, it just sucks. Like, everyone else gets these cool new items and they don't. So I think some of the pure damage supports like Brand, Zyra, Fiddle, these Vel'Koz, these types of champions are going to have a hard time on this patch, I believe. It's like, yeah, they could go something like Stoneborn and try to get cute. Like Stoneborn, Ardent Censer, but I just don't think it's going to be that great for them. We'll talk more about that here in a second. Let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so yeah, about an hour, but that's all right. Okay, so I want to spend a little bit of time on Zeke's conversions here. And Sadie is about ready to leave, aren't you, Sadie? Sadie's like, you're too loud. Why are you so loud? That's right, Sadie. So the grammar on Zeke's is awful, okay? Like, they need some grammar lessons here. All right, but I will break it down for you. So how it reads, this passive. So first of all, it has decent stats. It's got 30, 60, 250 mana is not amazing, but it's not a ton of wasted gold on mana. It's a little bit, so that's okay. If it had mana regen, watch out. This would be a really sweet item, because that would stack with Athene's, but it doesn't. It has flat mana, probably specifically for that purpose. So it doesn't interact with Athene's, because that'd be too strong, probably. And 10% cooldown reduction. So once again, this is great, because it's got cooldown reduction on a tank item. Very good. That's what we need. Okay, so the stats themselves are make it about a 96% value, so it's almost gold efficient. But it's really these passives. These are the reasons why you would get this item. It's a little on the steep side too. 2,400 is expensive for a support item these days because, you know, Redemption's still 2,100. Athene's is 2,100. I think Locket is 22 or 23. Knight's Vow is 23. I think Locket's 22. Ardent's 23. Yeah, 22. Banner's 22. So it's on the high side for support item, but it still is pretty powerful. So here's how it reads. Casting your ultimate near your ally summons a local frost storm for 10 seconds. As the storm rages, nearby enemies are slowed by 20%, and your allies' attacks burn their targets for this amount. Okay, this is a grammar fail and a half, okay? So allies is used, that's a singular. That's a singular noun, right? Your allies. Burns their targets. This is plural. This is not a singular pronoun. This is a plural pronoun. So it makes it sound like multiple people. And if you just read allies, like the way that it's spoken, it sounds like it's multiple people, right? But that's not the case. It's only one target. You have one person that you make your conduit, and that's it. So it's not everyone on your team. Not everybody gets this bonus damage. It's just one person, okay? So I put kind of a grammatically correct version here for you, okay? So the grammar is bad. You tag one partner as your ally. Casting your ult grants your partner a buff for 10 seconds. This buff empowers autos to deal 50% bonus magic damage over 2 seconds. That's how it should read, is something like that, okay? So basically your ally gets this buff for 10 seconds, regardless of how they interact with your storm. They get this for 10 seconds as long as they're close to you. And that one ally, your partner, that you've already activated your item to make them your partner, gets to deal 50% bonus magic damage over 2 seconds, right? I assume crits scale with this, and I assume on hit does not scale, so Trinity Force does not scale, but on attack probably does scale with it. Okay, so like a Draven Axe empowered by his Q, if he crits with it, would be huge. So, you know, a Draven Q that crits for like 800 damage, you would deal an extra 50 bonus magic damage over 2 seconds. Alright? Now, I don't know if it refreshes or stacks. So, for instance, if you get 2 crits in a row, it's over 2 seconds. Does that all of a sudden jump up to 800 over time? Or does it just refresh to the highest number? Or does it refresh to the most current number? I don't know. But it does a lot of extra damage, okay? Even if it's just 400, it just doesn't refresh. I don't know. It's awkward how that works out. I don't know why they're doing this like overtime thing with different abilities, but it's confusing. But anyways, whatever. It's a lot of extra damage. That's all you need to know there. It's a lot of extra damage. It scales with crit. It scales with on attack. So it would scale with like a Fiora passive. It would scale with like a Fizz Urchin Strike. It would scale with all the stuff that I talked about last video about Ninja Tabi, right? All that stuff that Ninja Tabi reduces would be buffed by this. Okay. Separately from this, you gain a storm around you for 10 seconds. The storm slows enemies by 20%. If your partner attacks somebody, and then you attack the same person, then, now I don't know how long the window is for that, but if they attack somebody, so let's say they attack the AD carry, and then you attack the AD carry, then your storm does damage, 40 damage per second, in that little area around you for 3 seconds. And the slow goes to 40% instead of 20%. Okay? So if you attack the same target, you get damage on your storm, and it slows for a little bit more. Good. Now, remember, as I talked about before, the storm can trigger Ardent Censer and Stoneborn Pact, because it's a slow. It's an area of effect slow, so it can put the rune on everybody from Stoneborn Pact. Plus healing applies. We talked about that. I don't think it applies to Ardent. I looked that up. The healing from Storm can also trigger Athene's. We talked about that. And Athene's has a cap on each heal, but no internal cooldown. So you can use all your blood charges over multiple heals. I don't think it uses all of them. We'll see. If it uses all of your blood charges and only heals for a very small amount, then it would suck with those champions. But I don't think that's the case. I think it only uses the amount of blood charges that you would heal. Okay. So here's what you want. When you're thinking of a champion, and this is going to be a great patch for brewing, just for trying out different stuff in normals and having some fun. Don't do it in solo queue, please. But just trying it out, some fun, new, wacky stuff in normals. I know a lot of people like to do that. This could be your chance. So if you want to try out that Anivia support, or you want to try out Teemo support, or whatever, I mean, this is a good time to try out some of that weird stuff and just think about it. So I'm just telling you conceptually what you'll want to think about. And I tried to think about as many of these interactions as I possibly could. But this is stuff you would want. A low cooldown ult is number one, because Zeke says whenever you cast your ult. Now, it has an internal 45-second cooldown. If you get Ruby Sightstone, then this goes down to a 36-second cooldown. So if someone has an ultimate that's really close to this, then you can cast it very often. Okay? Now, this is why I was saying that on Thresh, it's not that great, because Thresh's cooldown on his ult's 140 seconds. So even though this cooldown is only 45 seconds, you're going to be waiting the full 140 before you can use it. Whereas something like Blitzcrank starts at 60 seconds, which means that you can use it much, much more often. And that's what makes Blitzcrank a very good user for this. Karma also has a very low cooldown ultimate because her mantra, casting mantra counts as an ultimate. And I'm going to try this out with Tahm Kench, but I believe, and I've talked about this on stream a lot, and I talked about it, I think, in my last video. I believe that casting the first part of Tahm Kench's ultimate will trigger this. Let me see, where's old Kench? Yes. So we'll see. This will be an interesting interaction. This is part of his ultimate. So, if you cast his ultimate, and then cancel it. So if you cast it, it's almost like a teleport, and then move. It goes on a 10-second cooldown. So all you have to do in a team fight to activate Zeke's then is you walk up, press ult, and then just walk. So your ult won't do anything if you do that, but it'll activate Zeke's. And it's on a 10-second cooldown. So this is a way that you can cast Zeke's every 45 seconds. So once you get it, that's like every minion wave and a half. You can just all in them with this ability, which is fantastic on Tahm Kench, because sometimes if your team is just not really leveraging this, you'll just sit on your ultimate for a really long time without being able to like ult the jungler in behind him. If the jungler just like refuses to come down and gank with you or whatever, and you just can't find a good spot to use your ult, then sometimes you have to sit on it for a while, and that sucks. That's kind of a risk of picking Tahm Kench, but now you can actually use it to trigger that. So I think that's going to be a really nice interaction. So I think it'll be really good on Tahm Kench. I think it'll be good on Blitzcrank. Because Blitz's ult is only on a like 60-second cooldown, I believe. So yeah, you just hook somebody in, boom, cast it. So even if they flash away, you're still going to beat the crap out of them because you're going to have that huge buff, and they're going to be slowed. So it's going to help you run them down a little bit better. Yeah, 60-second, and then it goes to 40 at rank 2. So yeah, that's pretty sweet. Blitzcrank's going to be really, really good on this patch. He's already good, but his interactions with a lot of these new items is crazy. I think Gragas could be a sleeper here, because Gragas has a really low cooldown ult. Also, he wants those tank stats, and his ult's like 120 seconds. So I think it could be pretty good on him. You blow somebody back into your team, and then you have your ult going. You can slow, you can stick to him. And your AD carry is going to have that buff. So I think that's pretty huge. It could be good on Rakan. Rakan wants those tank stats really badly. He has a pretty low cooldown ult too, 120 seconds. Could be a good interaction with him because he can also use Ardent Sensor. And then Karma, I think, will be really good also because she has a really low cooldown ult. Now, the thing about Karma, though, is she doesn't really need those tank stats that badly. And she needs mana regen. And she can't really leverage the storm because she's not going to be getting close to that many people. Right, so you kind of want to stay far away as Karma a lot of the time. You want to stay far away, so you can't really leverage the storm portion. Whereas someone like Blitz and Gragas and Tahm Kench, they can all leverage that storm. They want to stand in there and do that extra 40 damage per second. What the heck? What that is? There's like stuff floating in my water. Anyways, so they want to. You know, they want to stick in there. Now, you can use it on other tanks like Nautilus, like Thresh, like Braum. But the problem is they all have long cooldown ults, right? Like, so that 140 seconds. So I specifically handpicked these three as potentially being really good because they have lower cooldown ults. Especially Blitz and Tahm with that sort of interaction with his ult, which I think will work. Okay, so Athene's is going to be insane on a lot of champions, especially Sona. I mean, I think it might get Sona permabanned. We'll see. But a 20% CDR was overkill on most champions. The 25% faster passive charging is really awesome. Extra mana regen's really good. Old Harmony was garbage. I mean, they nerfed, if you look at the patch notes, they nerfed... it looks like they nerfed her ability power. But remember, it has... 100% base mana regen now. And the passive that gives you 5 ability power per regen is just even triggering with itself is going to give you 50. So it looks like they nerfed it to 30, but really it's 50. So it starts just the item itself with no other mana regen on anywhere in your kit is going to be 50 AP. Because of that passive. So I think this is going to be a tremendous like meta-defining item. I think a lot of people are sleeping on this. I've heard people like Red Mercy was saying, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's, you know, whatever. Firewall's like, it's whatever. It's not a big... This is a huge, huge deal. Like, and I do some math here in terms of Sona. So if you look at just a standard build here, if you just go like Ardent Censer plus Athene's Unholy Grail plus Eye of the Watchers plus Redemption, pretty standard on someone like a Sona. That's a total of 350% mana regen, which is 70 AP. So, and then you have your 30 base AP that you get on the item, and so that means that you get 100 AP on a 2100 gold item, support item. You don't start to get to 100 AP until like Luden's Echo and things like that that are over 3000 gold. And this has way more utility to it. It's got, it has the CDR on it. It has the healing component to it. It's got the magic resist on it. It's got a lot of really, really good stuff. So like a Sona level 5, just to give you an idea about how crazy this is. A Sona level 5 Q with 100 AP is going to deal, if you throw a power chord in there as well, it's going to deal 766 damage. That means the passive is going to do potentially up to 192 bonus healing. Okay, so the bonus heal, the typical heal on the W is only 115, but it can do up to 192. And the reason is you get the heal plus the shield. So the heal will trigger the Ardent Censer, and then the shield will trigger it shortly thereafter. Or not the Ardent Censer, the heal, it will trigger Ardent Censer. But the heal will trigger Athene's once, and then as soon as they get the shield after that, it will trigger it again. So even though Athene's reads it cannot heal more than the base amount, it has no internal cooldown. So it'll heal up to the heal amount, and then the shield that does, you know, the extra 190 or whatever afterwards is also going to heal up to the blood charges. So you're going to use all of this, right? Just because the heal is only for 115, that doesn't include the shield. So basically, you're getting 192 extra heal off of this. So I don't remember what the exact number is. The base is 115. I assume the shield is probably like 130. So this basically reads something along the lines of plus 40% heal shield or something with it. So it's just absolutely insane just how much that Athene's passive can actually heal for on someone like a Sona who also does damage. Now keep in mind the plus healing applies to this. So if you have like plus 30% to healing, if you have Athene's plus Ardent Censer plus, well, Athene's doesn't do it, but like Ardent Censer plus Redemption plus Wind Speakers, for example, then you get plus 30% on that. So that means you'd heal for about another, you know, 55 or something. So it just starts getting nutty just how much you can heal on some of this stuff. So qualities of a good Athene user, you know, you have the very obvious ones like Sona, Nami, and Karma. So it's someone who can heal or shield. Remember that Stoneborn Pact counts as healing for that. A good AP scaling, so they have to have really good AP scaling in their kit. They want to stack mana regens. This is going to be a redemption user, most likely. And someone who can deal damage. So someone who not only shields, but someone who does damage consistently, like a lot of damage, and then that way they get more blood charges and they get more healing out of the passive. So it's very rare for a champion to have all 4 of those qualities, but if they do, it's really good. So the only champions I can think of that have all 4 of those are Sona, Nami, Karma. In that order of strength. I don't know, Karma is kind of a special case. She does a lot. Nami scales really, really well with AP. Does a lot of healing and all that, but Sona's just going to be the queen of this. I mean, the fact that she can use this and Ardent Censer is just, it's going to be disgusting, I think. Soraka can do it. The only problem with Soraka is she doesn't do a lot of damage typically. Now, if you land a lot of Qs on multiple people, like you keep consistently hitting 2 or 3 people with your Qs, yes, that does add up. So that could be good. You'll still probably want Athene's on her, I think. But I don't think she'll use it as well as someone like a Sona or a Nami might use it. And Gragas, interestingly enough, if we look at Gragas, and I'll talk more specifically about Gragas here in a little bit. Gragas, I think, is going to be a breakout tank of this patch as support. Because he can use all of these items very well. Like, he can use Zeke's, he can use Athene's, he can use Ardent Sensor. Like, he benefits from all of this stuff because he wants to be tanky. He uses AP very well, and he has 3 different abilities that can trigger Stoneborn, and he can use Zeke's very well because he has a relatively low cooldown ult, 100 seconds. So he's got it all, and I think he's already pretty good. I've been practicing him some before the stream, but I think he's already strong. So, anyways, so what was I talking about here with Gragas? Oh, the Stoneborn. So yeah, if you get Athene's with him and Stoneborn, he has 3 different ways to trigger it, not including Zeke's. So he can hit people with his Q barrel, he can hit people with his body slam, and he can hit people with his ult. All 3 of these will trigger Stoneborn runes on people, and if they hit any of that, then Ardent Sensor is going to go off on them. And then, of course, if he has Zeke's, then that will also trigger that Ice Storm, which will allow it to go off on everybody. So, I think he's one of the only champions in the game that, other than Blitzcrank, that can use Zeke's, Ardent Sensor, and Athene's. All 3 of those to be very powerful. And Knight's Vow. So he can use all 4 of those items extremely well, which I think is just going to make him an absolute monster. Now, that kind of hybrid build is not going to be able to incorporate a Redemption or a Locket in there, but it has so much other really good stuff going on that I'm not sure if it's really going to matter that much. But I think Gragas is really positioned well as a support for this patch, so he's someone who potentially could use the new Athene's quite well. Now, he does a lot of damage, too. So that means you're going to have a ton of blood charges. And with those runes, you're going to be healing for a pretty decent little chunk. Okay, so Knight's Vow, going to be much better. No one cared about the health regen. It's just a garbage stat outside the laning phase, so now it finally has CDR. They had been tinkering with lowering the cost to 2,200, but they reverted that, so it's 2,300. Still pretty good. But I think that the Knight's Vow change plus the Zeke's change makes tanks a lot better. So before it was hard to get Knight's Vow, you had to get it anyways, but it just didn't give CDR, and it just is kind of a feels bad. But I think it's very good on tanks, and I think that it's really good even on like Ivern in the jungle. So I think that's really good. I have even seen one of my friends who plays Ribbon Top actually buys this item a decent chunk. So it could even be good on some top laners, might start getting it because it has that CDR. So we'll see, but I think that's definitely going to be a powerhouse item. It has been relevant, but now it's even more relevant because tanks are more relevant because Zeke's is going to be really good. Okay, so Locket, I think this is a nice change. If we look at Locket here, pull it up. So it's 2,200, and this is potentially like a huge shield. If you look at now, its stats are not very efficient. It's only got 30-60 and no other bells and whistles on it. But the shield itself is going to be pretty massive. So they lowered the base amount, so you don't want to get it unless you stack a lot of health. But if you have a lot of health, you know, even at level 10, it's 20% extra bonus. So if you have like, well, I just got the math. Let's just go to the math. All right. So let's say that you have Vow, Knight's Vow, plus Face of the Mountain, plus Ruby Sightstone. So that's just a pretty simple, like, 3-item set there. You have 1350 HP, then you have plus 120 from your runes and masteries. And then you have 1470 total. At level 11, you would have a 603 shield. A 603 shield on everybody you hit. So, I mean, if that shield is worth... If they do enough damage to cut through all of that shield in a team fight, you know, that's almost 8,000 gold worth of health that you generate for your team. Now, obviously, it's not like real health because it doesn't decay, but it also doesn't get reduced by things like Executioners or Ignite or whatever. So, or Morellonomicon. So that's pretty dang good. It's pretty dang good. So I think that you'll still want to get this on like super tank supports, but I don't think it's a must rush. And on a lot of these hybrid tanks like Gragas, I think that you may not even need it. Because like the thing is, if you go Zeke's off of this, if you go Zeke's instead of like Face of the Mountain, for example, if you go like Zeke's into Knight's Vow, you're not going to have as much health. I need to get another water glass here in a little bit. I keep forgetting there's like weird stuff floating in that water. Hopefully I don't like die here in a second on stream. So it's okay. Now Redemption is interesting. I don't think it's OP. I think it's a good change because now tanks can't get it. I didn't link it there, but basically, well, I can just pull it up on the patch notes here. But basically, it heals for a ton less. It has less HP, has less health regen, has more base mana regen, but it's amplified 3 times by your healing and shielding power. So if you get things like, not Athene's, Ardent Censer, plus Windspeaker, plus Redemption, then that's going to be a lot. It's going to be a 30% heal, which will move up to a 60. So I've got some scenarios here. I did the math for you again. So, you know, at level 10, if you just rush Redemption and go Windspeakers, it's less. Okay, so it's 336 instead of 348 heal per person. So you don't want to rush Redemption. Absolutely do not do that anymore. However, if you have Ardent Censer and then you go Redemption, then it goes to 475 when it used to be 442. That's, you know, about 7% or so more healing. Now, if you go Ardent Censer plus Redemption plus Mikhail's, then all of a sudden it goes to 725 per person. So if you finish off with the Mikhail's, then that could be really good. Now, that might be a viable build for someone like a Janna. I think most people want to go Ardent Censer into Athene's Unholy Grail into Redemption. So you're just going to get this moderate level heal in addition to the Redemption stacks. Or not the Athene stacks. But on someone like a Janna who can't really use Athene's that well, it might be a decent option to go Mikhail's instead, and then that would give you much bigger heals on your Redemption. So I like how you don't have to be an Athene's user to be a viable support. They really want you to use it because it's very powerful. But you can still get benefit out of just running the standard, you know, Ardent Redemption Mikhail's and get some huge heals off of this. So that might be more viable on Janna, but I don't know. I'll probably still end up getting Athene's on Janna. That item's just so ridiculous, but either way. So the verdict is, it's not going to matter that much. If you get it as a third item, it's not going to matter. You're going to be a little bit squishier on Enchanters, but it's not going to matter for Enchanters like Sona, like Janna, like Nami, because you're not going to be rushing it anyways. So it matters because it's awful on tanks now. But as far as like, you know, your Enchanters, it's going to be roughly the same. You'll get a little bit more healing out of it if you get it like third item or second item. It's going to be worse first, but whatever. I already wasn't rushing it first. I was advocating going for Ardent Censer in the back half of the last patch, so that doesn't change too much. Okay, so, and what else? They changed a couple other things around. Banner Command, it just can't really hold up to those other items. The other 6 that I mentioned are just way, way stronger, so the vast majority of the time, this is going to be a garbage item. Like, you might get it on Thresh or something, maybe if you need to push, but it's pretty bad. I think we talked about everything else. They changed some of this stuff around. Still bad. Now, Talisman is interesting because now it's 2,200 gold. So you might be able to go Talisman instead of Coin. It's just like, it's so expensive, and like the stats on it are pretty bad. Like, it doesn't have plus healing on it. It's not really tanky. So I don't know. It's just in an awkward spot. Once again, I don't think it's as good as anything else on the list. Like, there might be some very special circumstances where your team really, really needs to engage and you just don't have a speed up option. I've bought it occasionally with Janna for those purposes, but it's a very rare pick. We'll put it that way. I think that's about it. Oh, there's a couple of Doran's things here. So Doran's Ring, they changed. This is mostly just for Galio, so you can't stack a ton of these. I'm not sure how much this is going to impact his mid and top lane. He might have other options he can do. Like, he might be able to just start rushing Athenes instead of a second Doran's and be okay on the mana regen side. I don't really know, honestly. We'll see. But I do think that he'll find a way to still be relevant and good. Now, Doran's shield is pretty... we'll see. This is a substantial change. I still think people get Doran's. Remember, I was one of the only people pounding the table on this thing for a very long time before pros, right? So as soon as they changed Doran's shield, I think it was in the... I think it was 7.8 or 9. I don't remember. But in those patch notes, I was like, Doran's shield, this thing looks OP. And I did a lot of math for it. And people just weren't playing it for a long time. And then finally, some pros started playing it. And they're like, oh, okay, it's good. It's like Malzahar that I was talking about like a month before Malzahar became hot. People still haven't adapted my 80 carry runs barrier and support runs heal. I think that's still the best combination of summoners, but people just haven't figured that out yet. But anyways, so I think this won't matter that much. I mean, one less potion's kind of a big deal, but I think Enchanter supports are going to be so popular anyways. Like, you're going to have a Sona or a Janna or a Lulu or a Karma or something in your lane backing you up anyways, that I don't think it's going to make that big of a deal that you don't have one more potion. So now, if people stop running this because they feel like it's too expensive, that's very, very good for the enchanters. So that's really good for Karma. That's really good for Sona, because it's hard to poke through one of these things. So that'll be nice if they stop doing it, but I doubt it. I doubt it. I still think people are going to get a lot of it. It's just such a ridiculous item. Bug fixes, and they are doing this event. They say that it begins during this patch, so I assume it's not going on yet. But I do like the idea of the patch. I won't go off that much. I think it's cool that they have these special missions and they're having special events and stuff. I think it keeps it really cool, especially for more casual players. I think that's a good change. But I won't go off on it too much. It's good. Riot's doing a lot of really good stuff with their R&D lately. Okay, so let's go ahead and just talk about meta predictions really quick, and then we'll get into the tier list. I'm going to go way over time, as usual, but there's so much going on this patch, I just have to cover it. Okay. So, meta predictions. Alright, Enchanter supports are still going to be really strong. I think they'll probably still be top of the roost. But tanks, there are some tanks that will definitely give them a run for their money with some of these builds. So, the healing stat, still really strong. Athene's is going to be overpowered on a lot of champions, especially Sona, Nami, Karmi. Sona, Nami, Karma are going to be really buffed with that. I've had a long day. I'm talking a lot. But the extra AP and the passive healing is just massive. And Enchanters still have probably the most versatile and powerful items. So you're going to be able to go Athene's Ardent, Athene's Redemption. You can get Mikhail's somewhere in there if you want to. You can get Mikhail's and Athene's. Athene's is going to lock out the Harmony on Mikhail's, so you're not going to get that extra health regen if you do that, but who cares? Like, the health regen doesn't matter that much on anyone except for, like, Soraka. So, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I sort of relinked this. I talked about this in my last video about why Ardent Censer is the item that you really need to rush right now. Go ahead and check that out if you didn't watch that from last time. It's like a 5-minute video from the #1 Korean solo queue player, Apto. And then you can look at Ardent Censer there. I linked it. And it's just... it's probably the most powerful support item in the game right now. It's really, really strong. Then I talk about sort of the difference. If you rush Ardent Censer on Janna, you get a 50 extra shield, and you get an extra 6 AD for your ADC, and all sorts of other good stuff. So it's really strong. Another reason why Ardent Censer is so good is it's reliable for solo queue, which I talked about last time. People run out of redemption. You miss redemption sometimes. Sometimes redemption's on cooldown when a fight breaks out. So it has a lot of margin for error there. So Ardent Censer, on the other hand, always works. You can't miss with Ardent Censer, right? So it just does its thing passively. There's no active on it. Enemies can't run out of it. They can't mess it up. You can't mess it up. It's never on cooldown. So it's just a much more consistent item. And I think this is also why Athene's Unholy Grail will be the second item to rush after Ardent, because once again, it's consistent. You can't miss it. There's no skill shots. Your enemies can't goof it up. Like, it's just there and it's powerful. Okay, and then you'll get Redemption third, because Redemption is really powerful. Also, by the time you get your third item, your team is going to be probably into full-on team fight mode. So you're going to hit somebody in a team fight a lot of times with it. Even if 1 or 2 people run out, you'll hit somebody with it a lot of times. So people are going to be bunched up more. Whereas when you get your first item, when you get your Ardent, it's probably still going to be like skirmishing mode. Like your team might be grouping up, but there'll probably still be a couple of enemy towers up, and you'll be skirmishing and sort of rotating around and things like that. So I just think Ardent's better in that type of game. But anyways, I do think you should still get Redemption as a third item, but I think most of the time Ardent plus Athene's is a better go. Alright, so tank supports are back. I think they will be good. Now, not all tank supports are created equally. Remember, tank supports that can use Zeke's, that's what you're looking for here. If they can use Ardent Censer, that's a bonus. Alright, so Zeke's Convergence, massive item. 50% bonus damage for 10 seconds on an AD carry? What? That's so strong. Like, so strong. So Zeke's is definitely what's going to bring tanks back into the meta, I think. Once again, I don't know, because Athene's is so powerful too. I'm not sure which is going to be stronger, but they're both going to be good. Champions that can use Ardent plus Zeke's, and if they can use Athene's, Gragas, then that's going to be really, really powerful. All right, so the Knight's Vow changes are also really massive. You get CDR on it. So finally, if you get your Zeke's plus your Knight's Vow plus like your Eye of Equinox or whatever, you're going to have 30% CDR. That's golden. That's going to be really good. So I think that's going to be really nice for tanks. Locket scaling, really good if you get giant shields for later. Once again, it might get squeezed out by the Knight's Vow, Ardent Censer, Zeke's users, because typically you only have enough gold for 3 items as support, in addition to your forward item and your boots. So you can't complete that 6th item a lot of times. So I don't know how often we'll see Locket anymore, but if you do see it, if you do have someone who's stacking health, it can be some very powerful team fighting shields. So I think the 2 types of tanks we're going to see are Ardent tanks, which I think are better, and then pure tanks. So Ardent tanks also leverage Ardent Censer. They have things in their kit that scale with AP, so it's not a wasted stat. And they have different ways to slow people in their kit in combination with Zeke's. So they have Zeke's, but then they have other ways to slow to trigger the Stoneborn Pact, which will trigger the Ardent Censer. So Zeke plus Ardent is just an incredible buff if you can get that going. It's 50% damage, like 30% attack speed, 30 on hit healing, all of that stuff. That's just massive. It's just like you're putting like super steroids on them. So that's really, really powerful to have that interaction. So don't forget that Hurricane applies that too. Every Hurricane hit applies the 30 on hit and the 30 healing off of Ardent Censer, and it benefits from the 30% attack speed, and I don't think it benefits from Zeke's because it says on attack, not on hit. So it does not benefit from Zeke's, but it does apply the Ardent Censer stuff. So that's really good. So I think that the best types of users for this that I described before are probably Tahm, Kench, Blitz, and Gragas. All of them have low cooldown ults. Remember the Tahm, it's not really an exploit, but kind of the sneaky thing you can do with Tahm where you cancel your ult. I think that'll work. I'll try it on stream tonight. The Blitz. Blitz is just such a huge user of this because he has such a low cooldown ult. He has a great engage. He has very high scaling with his with AP. Remember, he has a 1.0 AP ratio on both his Q and his ultimate. So he really, really likes AP. You just never build AP on him hardly. You could very easily build AP on him now. The reason you didn't do that before is because you just needed Redemption with him. Because Redemption's just so powerful you had to have it. But now that it's not a must-buy, then you're free to get AP if you need to. So that's 100% AP on his ult and 100% on his Q. So now you can go things like a Zeke's, because you have such a low cooldown ultimate, and then you can go Stoneborn Pact plus Ardent Censer, and you have multiple ways to trigger that as well. So you've got your Power Fist and you have your Q. Both of these will trigger the Ardent Censer buff, and your Zeke's little aura that you have will also trigger the Stoneborn Pact, which will trigger the Ardent Censer. So I think that Zeke's Ardent Censer on him is going to be nuts. So now Blitz not only has really good engage just to start off team fights, but he can actually contribute a lot to a team fight. He's going to put out that Zeke's buff and the Ardent Censer buff on everybody, because he's just going to run in with his little stone, or with his little Zeke's aura, and apply the slow to everybody. So, and he's just naturally kind of tanky with the mana barrier. So I think that that's a really powerful interaction. I think you put Knight's Vow on him after that, and then that's going to make him even tankier. So, you know, the fact that your AD carry is just going to be absolutely melting people with the Zeke's buff and the Ardent Censer buff means you're going to be getting healed for a lot more with your Knight's Vow. So remember that, because you heal for the amount of damage that your partner deals. So it's all just going to be disgusting. Like, I think that Blitz is just going to be nasty this patch. He's going to be really, really good. He's already very good. He's going to be even better. And then, remember Tahm Kench, we just talked about it. Now, Tahm, we pull him up. He doesn't benefit as heavily from AP, but he does have 1 AP ratio. So that's kind of the one thing about Tahm, is he can trigger the Zeke's really easily. He really, really likes Knight's Vow. He has extra protection, so he has a lot of utility already built into his kit. He's very good against other tanks because of his Eat ability. But he does also have an AP ratio of 0.7 on his Q, which is not awful. But he really doesn't have much other AP. I mean, you can spit things at people for extra AP. But he really doesn't have a lot of other AP. So that's the one thing about Ardent Censer, is it's not the greatest on him in terms of like scaling with the AP. But everything else he kind of likes. He likes the move speed. The plus healing is not terrible. It's pretty good with his Grayskin Shield. So it's probably still worth going on him. I mean, if you think that that's too cute and you don't want to go for the Ardent Censer, you can always just go Zeke's, something like Zeke's Knight's Vow, Face of the Mountain Locket, or something would be just like a pure, like, big tank build if you want to do it that way. But I think the Ardent Censer, like Zeke's Ardent Censer, could be a decent little buff. So you got to remember, he doesn't have to be an initiator tank. He doesn't have to run in and start the fight a lot of the times, too. He can just stand back and peel. So it just depends on what you need him to do. But now he does have an option just to sit back and peel and just make your AD carry out to be like a mega tank. So I think he's going to be really strong. And then Gragas, as I explained before, I think he's really good with all this stuff, too. He has a low cooldown ult for the Zeke's. He really loves Knight's Vow, and he really likes Ardent Censer, and he really likes Athene's Unholy Grail. So I think that all of that can be really big on Gragas. And Gragas can get away with running something like an Ardent Censer and even an Athene's, because those don't have very good defensive stats on it, because his W gives him an extra up to 18% damage mitigation, and he heals a lot himself with his Happy Hour. So I think he's really good. Another candidate could be something like Galio as support, who... Let's take a look at Galio really quick. This is sort of getting into the tier list stuff, but we can just save some time once we get down there. Now, Galio is not a good Zeke's user, and the reason is he comes flying in from like random places on the map, and if I'm reading Zeke's correctly, you have to cast your ultimate near a summoned ally. So if you cast it from like half a map away and fly in, it's not going to buff up your ally. So that's the one thing, is he's not a great Zeke's user. Like, you can use it if you're standing right next to your ally and you just fly up and go down. Like, you can do that. Which is probably what you should do. You're not going to be split pushing that much as support Galio anyways. So it may not be a huge deal. But he's not the greatest Zeke's user. However, he does really like AP, and he really does like magic resistance. So he's going to be a great Athene's user, and he's going to be a really good Ardent Censer plus Stoneborn Pact user, because he's got stun here, he's got a taunt here, he's got a taunt here, and then if he does use the Zeke's, then that'll apply the slow as well. So he's okay. I don't know if he's going to make a huge splash, but in theory he could be pretty decent as one of those. And then Alistar, kind of a fairly high cooldown ult, I think. Wasn't it like 130 or 140? Might be lower. Let me see. 120. Okay, so pretty good ult. He can use Stoneborn plus Ardent. He does have a pretty good ratio here. This ratio is kind of whatever. So it's like AP's okay on him. Zeke's is alright on him. The problem is, like, you're just going to have to go in and just press your ult, like, just to get Zeke's going. And typically you want to wait on Alistar until you take some damage and then ult when you're like 50% health. So this is going to require you to use one of your best defensive cooldowns just to trigger Zeke's a lot of the time. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting. I think pure tanks that are just going to stack a bunch of AP and work towards Locket will probably be Nautilus, Braum, Leona. You can play Tahm Kench like that, sort of, if you want. So these champs will probably go Zeke's, Knight's Vow, Locket. So you can do that on Tahm Kench also. You can do that on any of these guys also if you want just a more pure tank. But I think if you can find a way to run Ardent Censer, then that's going to be really, really nice, especially if your 80 carries ahead. You could get your Zeke's first and then just see how your 80 carries doing. If they're a total turkey, then don't worry about the Ardent Censer. If it looks like they're doing very well after you get Zeke's, then go ahead and get Ardent Censer to help them out. But you can always go to plan B and just go Knight's Vow Locket if you want to run that way. Now remember, Ardent also buffs potentially your whole team though. So if you have a lot of Ardo attackers on your team, like if you have a Yi and a Fiora top, like if you have a Yi in the jungle and a Fiora top, then you might still want to get Ardent Censer even if your Vayne is 0-4 bot lane, just depending on what's going on. Okay, I think non-Ardent AP supports are going to be a lot weaker. So if you can't use Ardent Censer and you're an AP support, I think it's going to be a problem. Especially if you can't really use Athene's that well. Like if you have no way to trigger the heal. Like you could go Stoneborn Pact, but like you could go like Stoneborn Pact, Fiddlesticks or something, for example, but only his fear will trigger Stoneborn, which sucks because he can't use Zeke's to trigger it. The silence actually does not trigger it, as I said before. Like if the silence triggered it, it might actually be a good plan, but only his fear triggers it. So that's just too hokey, I think, to try to trigger it. I mean, I guess you could. He doesn't really have a better, like, keystone. Maybe like Storm Raider Surge, but his keystones pretty much suck. So, I mean, I guess you could try to go just fear somebody, and then your 80 carry attacks him and still gets the Ardent Censer buff. I don't know. I mean, you could try it. Go out there and try it. The thing is, like, Fiddlesticks also needs Hourglass really badly. So that means he won't get Ardent. I don't know. There might be some compositions where I run Fiddle. It's going to be a lot harder to be like Zyra, though, because she doesn't... I mean, your only slow is your Vine Lasher or your E in the kit, so Ardent Censor's not going to be that good on her. The problem with like AP supports is they're already get massacred by enchanters most of the time if it goes past 25 minutes. And now that Athene's is out there, which also gives them more magic resist, don't forget that item has 30 magic resist on it. So it's going to give them extra magic resist and just a crap ton of extra AP and healing, which means their shields are just going to be like these massive blocks of shields. You're going to be like, oh my god, they just shielded them for like half of their health. That's what it's going to start looking like with like these Janna and Sona shields, or like Nami's going to be healing people for like half their health. Because of Athene's, I just think it's a really rough time to be someone like a Brand or like a Zyra. I mean, you can still win. They just didn't get any new toys, and every other role got all these toys. So I think that if you want AP, it's going to be things like Gragas, Lulu, Sona. I think those are going to be the new AP, and they're just going to go things like Ardent Censer plus Athene's, and if they want to, they could just go another like AP item. Death Cap or something. I don't know. Who knows? That'd be kind of goofy, but I just think they're going to do enough damage, especially someone like a Sona is going to do enough damage to where you wouldn't need to run a full damage support. Now, you could come up with some like goofy stuff like Ardent Censer plus Rylai's on like Brand, or like Ardent Censer plus Rylai's Fiddle, or maybe like Stoneborn Pact plus Ardent Censer Misfortune. That might be something I could play around with. But I think you're reaching pretty hard with that stuff. So I think that like the traditional damage supports are going to have a hard time. But I do think that some of the Enchanter supports are going to be doing a lot more damage, like Lulu, Sona, Nami, Karma. Okay. Death's Dance. I still think this item is ridiculously powerful, and a lot of people just don't understand it yet. I've suggested this to people in solo queue a lot. I'm like, hey, have you tried out Death's Dance on Lucian? hey, have you tried out Death Stance on Jhin? And they're always like, no, I haven't done that. Is that good? I'm like, yes, do it. So a lot of people are still building Blade Run King, unfortunately, but people figure it out soon enough that Death Stance is his for real item. Like, it's already insanely good on like Riven and Fiora and other fighters top. But I still think it's good on most AD carries. So right now, only Draven consistently buys it because Tyler1 recommended it. But I think you'll be seeing it a lot more on... it probably doesn't make a ton of sense on Caitlyn. Like, she usually just doesn't get lifesteal. But if you need a lifesteal item on Caitlyn, that could be pretty good. Let me see. Twitch probably still wants Bork because of how, like, his unique on-hit interactions with his ult. But yeah, I would definitely go in on like Lucian, maybe Varus. I like Varus has the interactions with Hurricane and I don't know. We'll see. But I think that Death Stance can be good on a lot of different champions. Especially like Jhin and Lucian are the two that come to mind that don't build it a lot, but it could be really good on both of them because they have lots of ability-based damage. Okay, I think AP Assassins are still just going to crush. Like, this is probably the most problematic role right now, I think, is mid-lane Assassins getting hyper-fed. That's just how I feel like games are completely, like, determined sometimes, is if LeBlanc in middle lane goes, like, 8-0. It's just, like, really hard to deal with. So I think that's not going to change. You know, they've nerfed champions that are good against Assassins. Like, Ryze, historically, is pretty good against things like a LeBlanc. But... and so is Malzahar, but they've nerfed both of them quite a bit. Now, more CC from the tank supports might change some of this. We might be able to lock people down, and more shielding from the Athene supports might be able to overcome it. But we'll see. Okay, so my top 5 for each role going to be, for top lane, we've got Fiora, Riven, Shin, Swain, and Galio. I think tanks are coming back. Like, fighters are really good, but I think that tanks are also starting to become a little bit more powerful. So, Shin is someone who has impressed me a lot in solo queue. It seems like almost every time I see a Shin, they're very powerful. I'm not exactly sure, like, what's going on with that, but Shin just feels really strong. Swain feels really good right now, too, and Galio, I think, will still be very good top lane. Galio might deserve to be a bit higher. I'm just not sure how much those Dorans are going to impact his laning phase. But I think all 3 of those can be really good. Mid lane, I still think Kassadin is the most overpowered champion in League of Legends right now. He absolutely has to be picked or banned every single patch. He's just ridiculous in solo queue. Like, in pro play, sometimes they can hold him down. But if he gets going, he's just virtually unstoppable. Like, you can beat him. He's not unbeatable, but he's definitely a presence when he gets really fed because he's just so mobile and does so much damage. And he's so tanky. That's the thing people forget is I played a game last stream where the dude felt like he was more tanky than the tank on their team, the 3 or 4 item tank on their team, because he runs Rod of the Ages, which gives him a lot of HP. Then he has this spammable shield. Let me pull him up here real quick. If you ever wondered, well, why does it feel like Kassadin's unkillable? I will show you. Oh, I forgot to put Elise on my jungler list. I need to add that on there because she's one of the best junglers right now. There we go. This is why he feels unkillable. Because this is spammable, he gets this down to like a 7-second cooldown. And he gets a massive shield. So, you know, whenever he attacks somebody, if he has 200 AP, then he's going to be shielding for 220. So he's going to block 220 shield. And that's in addition to his magic resist. So he's going to have, you know, like at least 40 magic resist, which means that shield is really going to block. So what did I say it was? Is like a 220 shield. Okay, so that means it's going to block 29%. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 280. So it just, his shield is just massive. It just blocks so much damage. And he takes a reduced 15% damage anyways from magic. So he's virtually unkillable. He's very, very mobile. He does an insane amount of damage. He's just ridiculous. Like, you have to kill him. Or, I mean, ban him. You have to ban him. Just remove him from the game. I just want to kill him. But you have to ban him. Yeah, I'm going to put Elise here. I'm going to take Nunu off. I had thought, you know, Nunu is a pretty good sort of utility jungler, but nah. Elise is just too strong. Okay, so Kassadin LeBlanc is similarly powerful. She's ridiculous. She can one-shot people, high mobility. Syndra is another one. She's not mobile, but she just does so much damage and has so much zoning power that she's a huge problem. Katarina, very mobile, high damage. Then I put Malzahar here. We'll see, but I think Malzahar can counter at least 3 of these. Maybe not Syndra. But I think he's pretty good against assassins. It depends on your jungler and how if your jungler comes to help kill. But I think that could be good. I think I hear my cat snoring behind me. And then as far as the jungle goes, I think Zach is still the most overpowered person on the block. I think Ivern is number 2, at least for me. I love Ivern. I think he's so powerful. I like to have Ivern on my team. I like to play Ivern. You know, I think the new build of Ardent, Athene's Redemption is going to be really, really strong on him. Yeah, and I think he can get Knight's Vow after that just to top it off. I think he's really, really powerful. Elise, super strong early game, the best early game jungler, transitions very well into the late game. She can still one-shot people. She has great utility with her web later on. She has great skill shot blocking with her little spider. She has great objective control. She has like a free built-in Zhonya's with her repel. So she's good at tower diving. She's good at dodging skill shots. She's good at getting out of tough situations. She's just really, really strong. So I highly recommend that people consider playing Elise right now. She's almost never banned and very rarely picked, even at my elo, like high plat. Okay. Master Yi, super snowbally, the best sort of boost champion in the game. If he gets ahead, he just kills everybody. Some people think it's silly to have Master Yi on this list, but trust me, if you've seen my solo queue games, you know, sometimes you will know that Master Yi is a major problem. Like, he can be beaten, but if he gets going, it's very hard to deal with him. Unless your team is very coordinated and has a lot of crowd control, he's difficult to deal with. And finally, Kha'Zix. I think Kha'Zix is another one who's been coming back. I talked about this with the Ninja Tabi changes and the Graves changes. I think that all the other early game junglers have been nerfed to the point that Kha'Zix is starting to become relevant again. Very snowbally, has lots of great resets, lots of invisibility. He's sneaky. Was this the patch where he got, like, or are they going to do that next patch? I'm trying to remember if they're going to change him either this patch or next patch. Potentially. Okay, next patch. So, he is what he is. He's very strong. I like him. And then finally, AD carry. I think that Draven, still number 1. Very good early, very good late, very snowbally, gets a lot of bonus gold, scales very well off of AD, scales very well with Death's Dance, which is the best AD item right now. Death's Dance and the Infinity Edge just crushes people. Very good with Enchanter supports that can peel him and shield him. Exceptionally strong with Janna. He's just wonderful. I highly, highly recommend playing Draven. He does get banned and picked a decent amount these days, but if you can get him and you can play him at all, highly recommend it. He's super strong. Twitch is another one. Now, Twitch is someone who, like, virtually never gets banned, and he is obscenely powerful. Very, very strong. So I highly recommend Door and Shield Twitch with an Enchanter support. Very good. Nice Lulu, Sona, Janna, something like that. And it just crush people late game. Kate is probably the most standard AD carry. She has to be one of the most picked AD carries right now. She's still really strong, great range, great zone control, great objective control with those traps. Excuse me. Really high scaling with her headshot, really great synergy with crit. Very strong. She's probably like the most well-rounded AD carry right now, especially because she rarely gets banned or picked, or she gets picked a lot but rarely banned. So she's usually one of the best ones you can get a hold of, especially if Twitch is banned. And she can punish Twitch a lot early in the game. He's going to outscale her later, but she can at least make him pay for it early. Misfortune is another one I've been seeing a lot more of lately. She's pretty good if you get auto-filled AD carry. She's just kind of a press R champ. She has very, very good aggression early on. So I think that she still can be really good. Crit is not great on her. It's okay. I think you still kind of have to go lethality on her. I don't know. It's kind of rough. But she's all right. She might deserve... Like, Xayah could be there instead of her, potentially. I think especially at lower elos, though, she's just really good because she's always relevant later in the game. You can just press R and do a ton of damage. Jhin, I think, is making a comeback. I think that, like I said, the Death's Dance Infinity Edge build Jhin, if people figure that out and start building that more, that can be really strong. They've given him a couple of buffs. He still has great utility. He's got his stun on his W. He can ult. Fantastic on ganks as long as he hits some of his ult shots. I think he could be good. He's pretty good against assassins because he can just blow them up so fast. He doesn't require multiple shots. So, you know, if someone like a LeBlanc tries to jump on him and he has his fourth shot, I mean, he might almost literally one-shot her if she comes in. So he can kind of answer assassins. Like, yeah, he can get killed, but at least he can almost kill them, too, with burst damage. Caitlyn's kind of the same way. Caitlyn's pretty good against assassins, because if you just drop a trap and just play around your trap, if they step on it, they're dead. Like, if they step on a Caitlyn trap and she full combos them, like, auto attack, net back, Q, auto attack, they're dead most of the time. Like, I've seen Kate just, like, 100-0 people with that combo. That's how we won the game against Kassadin. It's because Kassadin tried to warp in and Kate set a trap, and he stepped right on the trap, like, in 3 different fights. And she was just like, you know, pow, boom, 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 pow, and he's just dead. His health bar just disappeared. So Caitlyn, that does make her pretty good against assassins. I mean, assassins are always bad news for AD carries, but I think Caitlyn and probably Jhin to a lesser extent are about as good as it gets in terms of handling them. All right, how are we looking here? Another long video. I could stop here. I'm going to keep going, though. I've already said so much about these champions and why I think they're strong that I'm not going to spend forever on them. I think I've talked about most of them, so I'll just kind of go through here a little bit quickly. This definitely shuffled up the tier list for me. And once again, so I will go ahead and go into it. Once again, you know, I haven't played a game on this patch yet, so I'm not entirely sure, like, what the strongest, which supports will be the strongest. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's a big deal. I know that a lot, like I said, a lot of streamers are downplaying it. I think Athene's Unholy Grail is a really big deal. Zeke's is a really big deal. Knight's Vow Change is a really big deal. Like, there's a lot of stuff. It's a huge deal. I mean, the one people aren't talking about the Zeke's plus Stoneborn plus Ardent Censer interaction, because that's just way under the radar. But that helps enable that in a way that takes it from something that's just like a an oddity, you know, that Fiddle talked about one time, like 3 months ago with Ashe, into something that's actually a very important interaction potentially in this meta. So we'll see. But yeah, top of the food chain I think is Blitzcrank. I pulled him up. I've still got him up here. So Blitz I think is the best on this patch. Now there's several reasons for that. And the reason is he's very good against all the other ones, all the other top tier champions. Like, he's not good against tanks. If you want to counter Blitz, I think that Gragas is a pretty good choice now. Tahm Kench is also okay. Galio's okay. There just aren't a lot of good counters to him. He's really strong. So the reasons that he's better on this patch than he was already is, number one, he has a really low cooldown for Zeke's. It's a really big deal. So you pull people in, static field, stun them, knock them up. Then that way, even if your AD carry doesn't fully one-shot them, they're going to have the Zeke's on them. So they're going to do a lot more damage, and you're going to have that slow field so you can stick to them a little bit better. You know, you can activate your W, so you just run up, hook them, silence them, knock them up, and then they use their flash or whatever, try to run away. You've got your Zeke's Convergence spinning around you. You just overdrive, run back into them, and you just slow them for 40% for just basically forever, right? For like 10 seconds, because you can keep reapplying that as long as your AD carry keeps attacking the person. So it's wonderful at kiting. It's wonderful at running people down. It's just great. I mean, that's another thing. You could even, like, just activate your static field to turn on Zeke's and help your AD carry kite. If you look at this, basic attacking burning enemies ignites your Frostfire Storm 40 seconds per over 3 seconds. And it lasts for 10 seconds. So let's say that you have a, trying to think of a tank just, like, trying to get on your AD carry. Let's just say there's, like, a doesn't have a good gap closer, like a Nasus or something, right? They're just running at your AD carry, trying to get them. You can have this Frostfire on now and just slow them for this 40% forever, because they're going to keep getting attacked by your AD carry, and then you're just going to keep auto-attacking them, and this 40% is just going to stay on them. And they're going to be healing off of the Stoneborn Pact and the Ardent Censer procs. So I think that you can use this to kite, you can use this to run people down. Frankly, the Storm doesn't even matter. Even if this wasn't even active, even if it was just 50% bonus damage, this item would still be worth getting. So yeah, he's the premier user because at level 1 he has a 60-second cooldown, so he can just do this like on command, just about. So that makes him extremely strong right now. And then also, as I mentioned before, he can run Ardent Censer because he really likes having the AP. He can use that. He likes the movement speed. We have Ardent still up. Yeah, he likes all of this. He even likes the mana regen, right? So he likes the mana regen. He likes the ability power. He likes the cooldown reduction. Plus healing and shielding is kind of whatever. Okay, he doesn't like that much. The 8% movement speed, he really likes that. And giving this to your team, he can use Zeke's to proc it, he can use his Q to proc it, and he can use his knockup to proc it. And remember, this lasts for 6 seconds, right? Your knockup is on a 5-second cooldown, so you can keep that up permanently. As long as you just keep power fisting, you level up your power fist second, and you just keep power fisting the person that your AD carry is attacking, and or anybody is attacking, and they're going to keep getting the Ardent Censer buffs. So he's crazy with both of those items. Then you can get Knight's Vow if you want to after that. So you can get the holy trinity of items there of Zeke's, Knight's Vow, Ardent Censer, and he could be tanky and provide like massive buffs to your team. So that combined with the fact that he's a really strong engaged champion to begin with, and he counters all the other good champions, means that Blitzcrank is a beast right now. So the little mini guide here, we've got him going mobility, Equinox, Zeke's, Ardent's, Knight's Vow. And you can run CDR and armor if you want. If you want to get a little more crazy, you could run AP. But I would run with the tank side, because I think you can actually stick into a tank fight and be relevant, or like a long fight and be relevant outside of just your hook, because now you can run Zeke's plus Ardent Censer with Stoneborn Pact. So I think you'll be a lot more relevant in team fights. Even if you miss your hook, or even if you accidentally hook a tank, I think you'll still have a purpose, which historically that's been Blitz's weakness, is if he hooks the wrong target or he just flat out misses his hook, he can feel kind of worthless in a long team fight. But now you've got your power back with these really good interactions with strong items. Okay, Sona's the next. I've talked about Sona, and I've been predicting this for a long time. I think that ever since I saw Athene's get spoiled, I think she's just going to be obscenely powerful. I mean, Ardent Censor's already busted on her, and I don't use that word a lot. I don't say, like, Ashe is OP, you know, with all of this. Like, I don't have OP in every single video, right? Like, I very rarely use that word, but I legitimately think Ardent Censer is overpowered on Sona. Because she can proc it on everybody so easily. You just walk around with that aura and tag people, and everybody gets procced. So, and she likes every single one of these stats. So it's just really strong on her. And Athene's Unholy Grail is ridiculously powerful because she does a lot of damage with her Q. It's not a skill shot. It's just like in a fight, it's going to hit people. You just press Q, it hits them. You just press Q and auto attack whoever the closest target is. And you're going to build up so many blood charges. And you're going to get so much extra healing out of that. And she has such massive AP scaling on her W and on her Q. Just everything in her kit is just built like Athene's is the perfect item for her. The only reason she didn't get it in the past is because there were just better options. Like you just had to get Redemption. And Athene's was just overkill on the CDR, and it didn't give out that extra ability power. So now with these changes, I think she's just going to be out of control powerful. Like she's really, really strong right now. I think that Nami also, if you pull up Nami, I think Nami's going to be really strong as well. I predicted this also in the last patch. Nami has good crowd control with her bubble and with her ultimate, but it's her wave really and the way that interacts with AP that's really strong. That I talked about in the last video, but I'll just rehash it really quickly here. The way this works is every time that this bounces, and I talk about this in my Nami guide, every time that it bounces. Well, I'll tell you what. Let me pull up that math there, and I'll just show you the math without having to work it out here again really quickly. We won't watch the Nami video, but just pull up the Google Doc here really quickly for you. Now, I have a ton of guides like this, so be sure to check out my guides. Very detailed, helpful guides, I think. Okay, but we'll pull up this. Now, this is before Athene's got spoiled, but I was just talking about why AP in general is pretty good on her. Okay, so you have a 1.1 if you do heal damage heal ratio. If you do damage heal damage ratio, you have a 1.3 ratio. So if we look at this, so each bounce, so you have 30%, then 80%, or 30% if you heal somebody, and then you get 50% more, turns into 80%, and then you get one more bounce, and then that turns into 110%. That's where I get that number. So if you have 0 AP, so this is the math. If you do heal damage heal, how this would work out. And it decays at 0.85 per bounce. So that's what this says here. So, but it goes up. Every 100 AP you have, it does a 7.5% less decay. Okay, so that's kind of tricky to figure out mathematically, so I have it here for you. So if you have 0 AP, you toss it on an ally in a team fight, hits an ally, bounces to an enemy, bounces back to another ally. This is what your results would be. At 0 AP, you'd have a 319 heal. You'd have 196 damage dealt. So that would be like 515 total healing plus damage. All right. If you have 100 AP, then you're going to do 402 heal plus 261 damage for 663 total. If you have 200 AP, you're going to get a 490 heal plus 330 damage for 820 total. So these items, so if you go for Athene's, or let's say that you go for the 25 AP runes, which is what I recommend on her. So that's all AP Quints, all AP Blues. You get 25 there, plus Ardent Censer is 60, plus Athene's. So just Athene's with Ardent Censer, that'd be 50%, 150% mana regen, which would be 30. That'd be 60 AP on the Athenes. That'd be plus 60. And then if you do Eye of the Watchers, that's an additional 35. Plus 10 would be 45 off of Athene. So that's 190. And then you could get maybe some extra from your runes, or you can start building towards redemption if you just get like 2 more fairy charms. So let's say you get all of that. You get Watchers plus Ardent Censer plus Athene's Unholy Grail plus 2 fairy charms working towards your redemption. So you don't even have to complete redemption. You just get 2 fairy charms for that extra 50% mana regen. That'll put you at 200 flat. So that'll put you at 200. And the total cost on all of that is really cheap. That's like 6,500 gold or something. It's really cheap items. So that'll put you at the 200 AP mark. So you get a 490 heal. Then you're going to get plus 10% healing off of Wind Speakers and plus 10% healing off of Ardent Censers. That'd be 490. Bring you to 588. That's 600 heal. It's pretty beast. It's pretty beast. And you get a lot of extra damage here. Now, the 330 damage is going to give you... Let me write that down. 588 heal. You're going to get blood charges on your Athenes. So just off of spamming your W, let's see, you'd get 330 damage. So 330... times 0.25. 82 times 1.2 extra healing, about 100. So you're looking at about a 688 heal, almost a 700 heal off of those items every time you press your W in a team fight. And like you're double procking Ardent Sensor, so it's hitting 2 targets and buffing them up with Ardent Sensor. So that's just tremendous, tremendous damage. So, and healing. So that's why I think Nami's going to be so good. Now, I think the math on Sona is a lot better than that, but you got to keep in mind, this has a really nice radius too. Like you can cast this from 725 back off your target, whereas you have to get close with, and it can bounce an additional 725. So it can bounce around to a lot of people. Whereas with Sona, you have to get really close to the action. I think her aura's range is like 300, maybe 400, something like that. It's really close range. Whereas Nami, a lot of her stuff is really long range. So Nami is safer, but she does less healing and less damage than Sona does over time. She also has a longer cooldown. But either way, I think she's really, really good this patch too. So I think she might be a little bit under Sona. It just depends on how safe you need to be. Then I also have Janna really far up here. I'm not sure. Like I said, Janna doesn't have a lot of ways to damage people consistently other than just auto-attacking them, so she won't be able to use the blood charges that well. But she does have really high scaling on her shield and on her ult. So we'll see. We'll see. I tentatively have her up here, but she might need to drop down to tier 2. I don't know. But I still think she's really good. I mean, Janna's just the queen of the Clown Fiesta. She can save people from situations where no other support could save them without them dying. And I've talked about Janna a million times. She has been one of the best supports almost all season, certainly after patch 7.5 when they nerfed a lot of the damage on everybody. She's been an outstanding support, and she will continue to be an outstanding support, I think. Even though she can't use Athene's that well, even though she can't use Zeke's that well, she's just so inherently powerful that I think people will still pick her. And I think you'll still get the standard Ardent plus Athene's plus Redemption, and I think it'll still be okay. Even though she can't leverage it as well as some of the other ones. She has that extra little bit of safety. Okay, Tahm Kench I've talked about a lot already, so I won't go too much more into him. But, you know, I think that Zeke's Ardent Knight's Vow is going to be really good on him. Tahm Kench is very good anyways. He's good against Ashe. He's good against all kinds of engaged champions. He's very good against Thresh. So, I think he's great. I think you're going to be able to abuse his ult to trigger the Zeke's. We'll have to see how that works out. But I think that'll be a good move. Said he has an extra slow on his Tongue Lash and on the Zeke's Convergence. So I think that's going to be really powerful for Ardent Sensor. If you want to go that route, you don't have to go that route. You can just do Zeke's Knight's Vow Locket if you want to do that instead. But yeah, I think he's going to be really strong. I think the Zeke's interaction is, like, once you get that, it's almost like every wave, or like wave and a half, you can just all in with Zeke's, and they just can't fight you while that's going on. Like, they just have to flash. They already have to flash. Like, you can actually just straight up use his ultimate, too. Like, you don't even have to use the little cancel trick that I was talking about. You can just, like, put your conduit on the jungler, use your ultimate, warp in behind him with like a Graves or something that has your Zeke's ticking on him, and just blow people up out of nowhere. So you don't even have to be cute with his ult. You can still just use it in a normal way and just use it on your jungler and still come in and tear people up. So we'll see. I think he's going to be very, very strong. I think he's going to be the top tank on this patch, probably. Maybe Gragas will outshine him, but it'll be close. Or Blitz, you know, except for Blitz. Karma, I think, will still be really strong. They did nerf her shield, but I think you can go just the standard Ardent, Athene's Redemption route if you want. Or if you want to try going the Zeke's, like if your AD carry is doing very well, you could start with Ardent. And then if they're doing very well, you could go for Zeke's right after that, because you can trigger it so often. The stats, remember, are pretty garbage on Karma, though. She doesn't really need to be tanky. She does like the cooldown reduction, but once again, you're getting that if you just have a hyper-fed AD carry. It's on the table for you. Like a Twitch, you can just roam around and use it like every 20 seconds just to keep catching people and killing them out of nowhere. So like you have that option, but you don't have to go down that road if you don't want to. You can still just go for the more traditional Ardent Sensor into Athene's build, and I still think you'd be quite strong. So Yeah, she got nerfed a little bit, but she's so good with Athene's that I don't think it's going to matter that much. Because obviously she can spam her Qs and fight, her W, just auto attacks. I think she's going to stack up a lot of damage so that she's going to have a lot of blood charges. Lulu, I still think is going to be really powerful. Now, Lulu doesn't scale as well with plus healing, but the thing is you're not building as much plus healing as you used to now, because you're not going to be getting Mikhail's on a lot of these utility supports, because you're going to be getting Athene's instead. And I think that Athene's is going to be really good on her because she really likes AP. I mean, she doesn't have massive ratios. It's only a 0.5 here, no ratio on her W. Well, I guess a very small one. Her shield only has a 0.6, like Janna's is a 0.7. Her ult's only a 0.5. So she's not amazing with AP, but she's still pretty good. And she puts out some pretty nice damage in a team fight. She can glitter lance and hit several people. Spam that. Picks, you're going to be shielding your own people a lot of the times, but, you know, I still think that running Ardent Censor plus Whimsy on somebody is just so massive in terms of extra attack speed and that on-hit damage that I think she'll still be really, really good. I mean, you can run Zeke's on her. She does have a low cooldown ult if you want, although that is a little awkward because you want to use your wild growth, like, reactively instead of proactively. So usually Zeke's users want to start a fight with it and just, like, go. Whereas this, you kind of have to wait till almost the end of the fight to use it. I mean, I guess you could just wild growth early. It just depends. But I think she'll still be really strong. It's possible she'll be top tier, but we'll see. Gragas, I've talked about him a lot. He could deserve even to be tier 1. I think he just has such synergy with such great items right now. I think that the Zeke's Ardent's Knight's Vow build is going to be crazy on him. Very tanky, very powerful, lots of sustain, lots of crowd control, lots of way to proc Stoneborn Pact. You can use the double buff Zeke's Ardents. I think he'll be really good. Rakan, I think he'll be better in pro play, but he can run for the Zeke's Ardent Censor build. That'd be pretty good. He really wants that tankiness. He has a low cooldown ult. He does get into the action, so he can slow people and put... You can run Wind Speakers on him, but you could also just run Stoneborn if you wanted to with your ult when you touch everybody and put the slow on him from Zeke's. That's a little goofy to run Stoneborn on him because you would want to run Wind Speakers. But, you know, if you're running Zeke's plus Ardent anyways, you're not going to be having that much shielding and healing, I guess. I don't know. It's tough to say. It's tough to say. You can run Ardent. Like, I guess you don't need Stoneborn because... I don't know. Heals and shields. So I guess you can just jump to people and give them the Ardent with your E, so you probably don't need to... Yeah, I guess you would just run Wind Speakers. You don't need Stoneborn on him. But yeah, I think he'll be really good. He can run the trinity of strong items. Better in pro play, but okay in solo queue, for the reasons I talked about earlier. Galio, I think he'll be a pretty strong tank. He's not great with Zeke's, but he is very good with Ardent Censor, Stoneborn Pact, and Athene's Unholy Grail. So I think he can go Ardent, Athene's Redemption. It'd be pretty good. He could also go Zeke's if he wants to. He can go Knight's Vow. So he has a lot of flexible options. I guess you could go Ardent, or Zeke's Ardent, Knight's Vow. That'd probably be a pretty dang good build. And just have Stoneborn Pact. Then you'd have your double buff plus your Knight's Vow. Yeah, so you'd have a nice trinity there of good mix of defense and the double buff. That could be pretty good. Soraka, still strong. I mean, if you have tanks on your team, Soraka's good. Just people just aren't building tanks that often. These itemization changes don't benefit Soraka as much as they benefit some of these other champions. So I think that, you know, running something like Ardent Censor plus Athene's is okay. I mean, you could still run you could just say whatever and just run like Ardent Mikhail's Redemption on Soraka and just forget Athene's and just have like huge heals. But She just doesn't have as much synergy with the cool like new item interactions as other champions do. So I think she can still be strong, but I think she'll have problems. She's not very good against Blitz, and Blitz is going to be everywhere if people figure out like how good he is with these items. Blitz might draw bans. We'll see. Okay, in tier 3, these are still like good champions, but they're just not as good, I don't think, as the tier 1 and tier 2. So these are the ones that I would like actively recommend that people play. And I think this stuff could shuffle around some. And there might be some gems in the coal mine that I have overlooked. You know, I tried to look and think about as many champions as I could with these item interactions. But, who knows? Go out and look and figure it out yourself. But I think that this is about how it's going to shape up. Fiddlesticks and Zyra are down a lot lower, as I explained earlier, because they just don't have good interactions with the new items. Everyone else got new toys and they didn't, so they're just going to fall down the food chain a little bit. Thresh can be good, but his itemization is trash now. Like, he doesn't have great interactions with Zeke. He can't build Redemption and Locket as well anymore. He can't build Knight's Vow. Like, he just doesn't have good interactions with the new items. He's just a hybrid who just doesn't have a home right now. So he has a great kit. I mean, Thresh always has a great kit. He just doesn't have great itemization. So I think that's a problem. Nautilus is another one. Like, he's good, but I mean, I guess you could go pure tank maybe on Nautilus and be all right. You know, you could run something like Zeke's Knight's Vow Locket on him and be okay, but his interactions just aren't going to be as strong as like Gragas' interactions, I think. Now he can go like Ardent Censer also if he wants to. You know, he could go like Zeke's Ardent with Stoneborn. You do have a way to put Stoneborn on everybody with your E pretty consistently in addition to your Zeke's Convergence, but I'm not quite sure that's as reliable as... I mean, it's reliable, but I just feel like Gragas is better. I feel like Gragas, Galio, and Blitz are just better tanks right now. But I think that Nautilus, you know, he could still be relevant. He could still be relevant. Bard. Now, Bard's a tricky one, and Bard maybe deserves to be up higher than this. It's iffy. Like, the reason he's down here is a little bit further than people would probably like for him to be. I like playing Bard. Let me preface by saying that. I think Bard's really cool. But the reason he might be a little bit lower is because, first of all, it's really hard to coordinate with him in solo queue, right? So you've got to have your team, like, that knows what to do when you ult people. You have to actually ult and hit the right people. You have to take magical journeys, like, and just make really good sort of macro decisions on where you're rotating and when you're rotating, when you should go get charms, when you shouldn't go get charms. That's just really hard for a lot of people to make those decisions appropriately. He does pretty good damage, but he doesn't have scaling on a lot of his abilities. Like, there are 2 of his abilities, or maybe even 3, that just, I guess 2. Let me see here. And then we're almost at the end here. They just flat out don't have any scaling with anything. Like, his magical journey and his ult have no scaling. There's just nothing influences these items, and that's bad. Like, later in the game, that's bad in solo queue. Now, in pro play, he can be good because, you know, you have tight organization. People know how to follow up on these ults. The people playing him like Afromu are going to hit a very high percentage of high-impact ults. So, he's interesting. Slow enemies. Okay, now, a lot of people run Thunderlords, but I think that potentially you could run... This could help him out if you run Ardent Censer and Stoneborn Pact, which is goofy, but the reason is his auto attacks are going to apply a slow. So that will trigger Stoneborn and that will trigger Ardent Censer. So you can also hit with your Q to trigger Ardent Censer. So you'll lose the early pressure with Thunderlords, which kind of sucks. I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it. It might be a little too cute, but I feel like he almost has to run Ardent Censer in solo queue to be relevant because he can't run Redemption anymore and he can't run Locket, which is what he used to run. Because almost any support was good to go if you just slapped a Redemption and Locket on them. Didn't matter what their scaling or ability was, right? But now that you can't just rush those items, he needs to run Ardent Censer. So you would probably run the standard sort of Ardent Censer, Athene's Unholy Grail, and Redemption. and you might need to run Stoneborn, because remember, the Stoneborn with Ardent Censer interaction is going to let you drain those blood runes off of your Athenes. Because right now, your only heal is this, and it's on a pretty long cooldown, and it's a pretty crappy heal. You're going to level this last. So, you know, if you just need to insta-heal somebody just to trigger your Ardent Censer, for example, if you just need to trigger your Ardent Censer, then, let me see. Yeah, you would need to run Stoneborn to make Ardent Censer work, because your only heal is this, which is garbage, because it's on a 12-second cooldown. And it heals for very little. Yeah, so you would need to run Stoneborn to run Ardent Censer. So you'd run Stoneborn, Ardent Censer, Athene's, Redemption, and then that way the healing off of your Stoneborn will tick down your blood counts, so that you know, people can like use all of your blood charges, because right now this is not going to use your blood charges. You're going to be sitting at max charges and just not able to use them, because you're going to be doing a lot of damage with your meeps. So, you know, this applies a slow, which can apply Stoneborn. This applies a slow or a stun, which can apply Stoneborn. So I think that's what you would do with him. So, we'll see. I mean, maybe that's good enough. If you just go Stoneborn, Ardent, Athene's Redemption, maybe Bard can be a lot more viable. That will give him quite a lot of AP, which is very good with his meeps. And it will give him a little bit more utility. So, we'll see. He might deserve to be higher, but just kind of like Thresh, there's a lot riding on your ability to use him correctly and your team's ability to play around him correctly. Alistar is okay. I mean, maybe he should be higher. I just think that Gragas, Galio, Blitz, and Nautilus are all better than Alistar right now. But, I mean, if you run Stoneborn on Alistar, you know, if you go Zeke's, Stoneborn, maybe Ardent Censer, Knight's Vow, you could make it work. It could be interesting. We'll see. Vel'Koz, Brand are just kind of out of it. I really wouldn't go much deeper than this right now on this patch. I mean, there might be a few matchups where you'd want some other stuff. But I think Vel'Koz is going to have a hard time, and Brand, for the reasons I've described before. It's just not a good patch for pure AP supports. Now, Vel'Koz might be able to run Ardent, because his ultimate does apply a slow to everyone that it touches. So he might, I mean, you'd have to go like Stoneborn Ardent on him, which would feel pretty awkward. But if you went Stoneborn Ardent on him, and his ult does apply a 20% slow. So you would be able to put the Stoneborn on everybody, and then as they attack, everyone on your team would get Ardent. So that would give you some more utility. So I think Stoneborn Ardent would be the way to go if you want to build him like just the standard Stoneborn, Ardent, Athene's, I guess Redemption after that. I don't know. It's kind of awkward, but I think that's just what you have to build right now. I guess you could do that on him. You would give your team all those healing. I mean, you would get a ton of blood charges off your ultimate, so people would be healing like a zillion as they keep attacking people with these blood charges. So that would be good. You would translate all of that damage, or at least a lot of it, into healing for your team, which would be really nice. So that's really awkward. But, I mean, I guess you could go Stoneborn, Ardent, Athene's into another damage item if you wanted to. Like, maybe Leontries or something. I don't know. It's awkward. I would just, I would honestly just play him Stoneborn, Ardent, Athene's, Redemption. Because remember, Redemption's going to give you 30 AP on it now, too, with Athene's, because it has 150% mana regen. So that's 6 procs of the Athene's passive, which is 30 AP. So Athene's has 30 AP on it if you have, or Redemption has 30 AP on it if you have Athene's, which makes it a lot more valuable. 600 gold more valuable, roughly. So he might actually, Vel'Koz might be okay because he can apply that slow on everybody with his ult. So that he might actually be one of the go-to APs if you need some AP. It's interesting. I hadn't really thought of that, but yeah, because he does put that slow on there. Zillion could be okay. I mean, if you go that combo, the Stoneborn, Ardent Censer, Athene's Redemption could be good on Zillion. He does have a slow on his E. Or if you double bomb somebody, that slows him. So, I mean, that could be decent. Braum is like, he's okay. He's a good pocket pick against Twitch. I don't know. I mean, if you're going to go Braum, I would just go the, you know, Zeke's Knight's Vow, Locket build on him. Be pretty good. He has no AP ratios, so he can't really go Ardent, which is a huge strike in my book, but he can't go Ardent or Athenes, but, you know, he still could be pretty strong. Maybe. That's stretching it. He's okay. He's okay. Morgana doesn't have any, like, synergy with anything, hardly. I just wouldn't go Morgana on this patch. I mean, she's okay. She doesn't benefit from plus healing that much. Like, her Black Shield gets a little bit more out of it. She can't really use Zeke's that well. She can't really use Athene's, Ardent Censer, Redemption. She just doesn't... Knight's Vow. She just has no synergy with the good items. Leona, you could go the... She does have some stuns in her kit. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could go, like... But she has no AP ratio, so Censer would be awful on her. I mean, I guess you would just go, like, Zeke's Vow Locket on Leona. Maybe it's okay. Trundle is okay. It's probably better choices. Teemo, I wouldn't do it. AP supports just aren't in a good spot right now. Nunu is interesting because you can Blood Boil. He does like Ardent Censer. I'm going to move Nunu up because I think he could be a lot more interesting in this patch. I might play Nunu before I play Alistar. I don't know if I'd play him before I played Bard. We'll move him up a little bit. And the reason is you can Blood Boil. He has great AP ratios. So the Blood Boil gives extra attack speed. You can run Zeke's on him because he wants the tank stats. If we pull up Nunu here. Pretty low cooldown ult. I think it's like 100 seconds or something, right? 110. Pretty low cooldown ult. It lowers the attack speed of everybody, and it slows everybody, so you can apply all those Stoneborn procs. So he would definitely be a Zeke's Ardent Censer, Knight's Vow kind of guy. He applies slows on this, he applies slows on this, he applies slows with the Zeke's. He gives extra attack speed, a ton of extra attack speed, 50%, which complements the Zeke's buff, and it complements the Ardent Censer buff. So you're just really giving them the super steroids here. You're giving them extra movement speed to go along with it. So, you know, if you have a hyper carry and you just have a free lane, you know, maybe if you're against a Janna or something and you just want to outscale them, like if you're against Janna Ezreal and you have a Twitch and you just want to go real hard, you know, maybe you could go for this. I don't know. It's a little dicey. It's a little cute, but it could be good. I don't know. Great zone control, you know, great slows, lowers attack speed by a lot, nice debuffs, nice buff. I mean, all of it sounds really good. And maybe it is. Who knows? I mean, this Nunu could be a sleeper. The fact that he can run Zeke's, Ardent, and Knight's Vow very, very well. He has really high base stats. He's really fast, and he has an extra steroid is really nice. I mean, he might deserve to be a lot higher, but I'm going to need to test it out first. So, I mean, he could be as high as tier 2. I don't think he's tier 1, but he could be as high as tier 2. Potentially. Not to mention you have that extra smite for Barons and Dragons to help secure them. It's interesting. It's interesting. So, Nunu's a very interesting case now. Misfortune could be cute. Like, you can just press your E on him and basically trigger Stoneborn on anyone that you put your E on. And then anyone that attacks is going to get the Ardent Censer buff. And you really like the AP with your E. So you could, in theory, go like Ardent Censer, Athenes. They would heal a lot off of that too. They would heal a lot off of your ult. You press your ult. It's going to damage everybody for a ton. The problem is it doesn't slow people. I mean, maybe if you got like Rylai's or something with it, that would be cute. But I don't know. I think Misfortune's probably just not the place to be right now. It's interesting. Taric. I mean, his ult has a massive cooldown. It's like 160 seconds, so he can't really use Zeke's that well. Ardent Censer's like okay, but you don't have a lot of slows or stuns. You just have your E, so you might have to run Stoneborn with Zeke's. I don't know. He doesn't have a lot of synergy with good items. Malzahar still has a lot of problems. I wouldn't run Malzahar as support. His minions are garbage, and that was what support Malz was all about. Lux is okay. Once again, I don't like APs right now. These are okay. I've seen some pros running the Sejuani. Who was that? Echo Fox or something was running it. I'm not sold. It's okay. Like Rammus, Scion, they're okay. Ivern's interesting. I think Ivern is very powerful in this patch, just not as a support. Too many of his abilities are kind of worthless, like especially his passive. You can't really use that very well as support, typically, unless you run Smite, which you can't afford to do that as support most of the time. Rumble's out. I'm gonna just throw Rumble off there with these nerfs to Rumble. He's in the gutter. Just whatever. Throw him at the very bottom of the list. Nasus is an interesting case with like Stoneborn Pact maybe, but I think it's probably too cute. Okay, that's gonna be it. Super long video. Thank you very much for staying tuned. What was it, like 2 hours or something? 2:30. But there's a lot going on, and I think there's a lot of information, and this is a very cool time to explore League of Legends. Like, who knows, maybe you'll find this super overpowered thing that I like missed, right? There's a lot of interesting stuff, you know. Like I said, Nasus has the potential to be interesting. But I did look and think about every single champion that could possibly support and how they interacted with Zeke's and how they interacted with Ardent Censer and Athene's Unholy Grail. I think those are the big questions to ask, and Knight's Vow. Those are the most important ones, I think, to ask. And I think I gave you some good answers. So the sleepers, I think, that aren't on a lot of radars right now. I think Blitzcrank is on a lot of radars, but I think he's way more powerful than people think he's going to be with those item interactions. I think that Tahm Kench, no one has talked about that exploit I think that you can do with his ult. It's not really an exploit, but like how you can take advantage of canceling his ult to trigger the Zeke's convergence. I think Gragas is probably the biggest one that everyone's sleeping on as support. I think he has awesome interactions with these items. Galio could become relevant as a support again, maybe. Rakan, I think, is going to gain a little bit of steam. Yeah, and that's about it. Like, Sona doesn't get nearly enough press. I mean, I talk about her all the time, but if you think about it, she's very rarely on top tier list. She's like, people like Red Mercy hasn't talked about Athene's on her. Philo hasn't talked about it. Like, very few people are talking about just how powerful that item's going to be on her in conjunction with Ardent Censer. It's going to be disgusting, and it's going to be really good on Nami as well. So I think a lot of people are sleeping on these things, but Gragas is probably the biggest like unknown that a lot of people may not have thought about. Galio's getting up there. Nunu is interesting. Bard is interesting. Zillion potentially is interesting. So yeah, and there's probably other stuff. Like I said, Nasus is kind of interesting too. Like Nasus could go like his Wither can trigger Stoneborn and they're not getting away. Then he can run. He has a low cooldown ult, so he can run Zeke's Convergence, and he can run the Stoneborn Ardent combo with Zeke's Convergence, and that could be really strong. So he's naturally very tanky. He gets those extra buffs. He has a great debuff with his ult. He actually kind of likes AP, so getting the AP from Ardent, and you could even run Athene's Unholy Grail on him. And he likes the mana regen. He likes the plus healing with his lifesteal. So, I mean, it's possible. Like, it seems like Siphoning Strike is a waste, but if you rush Eye of the Equinox, the forward item, then every 30 seconds you can at least get 1 stack of Siphoning Strike. So, I think that's pretty good. So, I mean, you can get some stacks. You're not going to get, like, 1,000,000 stacks, but you'll get some decent stacks. You know, you can probably get to like 200 stacks or so, and that's relevant, right? In a game, maybe 200, maybe 300 stacks. That's still doing 300 damage on a low cooldown in a team fight, so that's okay. Wither's the big one. I mean, being able to cripple someone like a Twitch or like a Draven or even a Caitlyn, just take their attack speed for 5 seconds down to just an insane amount. If you've never been crippled by a Nasus as an AD carry, I'm here to tell you right now, it sucks. It's really, really rough. So yeah, slowing them for 5 seconds and like just taking all of their attack speed is massive. And he has really good push early, right? So this is where the AP Nasus kind of joke, but it's decent. I mean, how long does it stay? 5 seconds? Get this to level 3 at level 5. That's 135 plus 135. That's 270 damage. That's a lot of mana for it. That's a pretty good wave clear. And it reduces armor by, 30. That's a lot. That's a lot of armor penetration. So if you have a lot of damage dealers on your team, like, and there's a big team fight going down, like, I mean, Spirit Fire can be okay. I wish they'd lower the cost on it and maybe the cooldown. It's interesting. It's interesting. Now this doesn't slow people. It doesn't really scale. It gives you a lot of resistances, I guess. It makes you tanky. So you can kind of peel and sort of be a presence with this, but I don't know. It's interesting. I don't think he's top tier, but if you're looking for kind of a weird one that you want to experiment with, Nasus, you know, Nasus with, like I said, Ardent Censer, or with Zeke's Stoneborn Pact as your mastery, Ardent Censer, and then like Knight's Vow could be interesting because you could use both of those and really make sure that no one's running away while your AD carry just beats the daylights out of them. You just don't have any peel, really. But you have a lot of shred. Like, you, while they're really withered by this, you can lower their armor by 40 while your AD carry goes to town with all those buffs on them. And they can't really fight you back. Like, if the enemy AD carry has a wither on them and your AD carry's fighting them, they're not going to win. Spoiler alert, they're not going to win. So, you know, maybe as a pocket pick against a comp that really doesn't have a lot of damage and they're very heavily relying on something like a Twitch or a Draven, especially at lower elos, you might get Wither because the AD carry just might not get Quicksilver Sash. If they do get Quicksilver Sash, that's bad. But anyways, he's interesting. He's interesting. So that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hope you appreciate it. Or I appreciate your viewership. Hope you enjoyed it. Sorry, once again, I've been talking for 2 hours and I'm tired. I've had a long day. Had a long week. Had a long month. But anyways, it's a great time to be a support. I think this is going to be a very exciting patch tonight on stream. I'm going to start the stream probably around 9:30. I still have to do one more coaching video before I do the stream. And we've got the cat lined up here. She's ready to go. You excited, Sadie? Hey. Yeah, she's excited. So anyways, it's an exciting time to be a support. So go out there, experiment in normals or flex. There's a lot of fun stuff out there. I tried to point some out for you. Hopefully you can find your own fun interactions. And I'll see you soon. All right. Have a good day.